It's time to start going early, just to talk to people. Screw it. Who cares? 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Let people come in. Let people do cool things. I don't know. Does anybody do cool things anymore? Who knows? Gotta get everything set up. It's gonna take a while. And that's why we're starting to go early. Oh, let me switch from Zoom. There we go. That's much better. People always text. I gotta learn to mute my phone. Are we live? Huh. Yeah, I guess. We're waiting on people to come in. I figured, like, you might as well just, go on and talk to people before everybody else gets in, before, like, I have to start up a Zoom meeting. Even though it's already started. We're just waiting for people to pop in. Is my mic still low? I don't even know. It seems, I guess when I whisper, it gets, when I use my deep voice, it gets low. That sucks. Oh, well. You can't. I don't have an audio engineer. John's gone, and there's nobody to fix my audio for me anymore. If anybody knows an audio engineer, that'd be great. I need a video tech. It took me like 5 months before I figured out how to turn on manual focus on my camera. God, people stop texting me. Oh, it's updating. Took me forever to figure out how to make that song come on without me having to press a button. It's nice. It's like an intro. I got this mug. Alan Thomason told me to get them. It's really cool. So, it's difficult to talk over the intro music. I only have 10 seconds left, though. 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! So I'm working on some new stuff for the meetup. How would you guys like it if I could? Is it a small mug? No, it's pretty big. It's like it's compared to my face. I don't have a banana for scale. It's my phone. It's all right. What's in the mug? It's sweet tea. This is boring. So the meetup. I'm working on something, and if it works, it will be cool. I am working on getting a movie theater because I've always wanted a movie theater. Oh, look, Robert Jenner's coming on. I got to turn back on Zoom. I've always wanted a movie theater. What's up, Robert?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Shit, my speakers are on. Let me turn them off. All right, cool. Yeah, let me switch over to Zoom. Oh, look, and Ashley's coming in. So I'm thinking about getting a movie theater for the meetup. No comment? Okay. Let's just wait. Oh, I can't hear you. That's weird. Why can't I hear you? That's probably on my end. Let me look. Maybe it's not on my end. Did I just screw something up? I think I just screwed something up. Because Robert can't hear me. I don't think. Yeah, give me a second. It's fucking professional here. Professional time. Can I be? Nope. Still nothing.
All right, is that better?
Yes. I think it was my fault. Pretty sure it was my fault. Oh, that's why I thought we were waiting on Ashley. I thought that little box. There's a creepy lady in black, but yes, there is. Sorry, I was reading the comments. So, Robert, I think are you coming? Did I see that you were coming? You're not coming to the meetup, right? Oh. So there's a movie theater like right next to the gallery where all this stuff is, and I'm going to see about maybe not like borrowing it, because renting it, I think I can borrow it. And I'm gonna see if Renner will let us screen his documentary. Because like the thing with him is like, oh, they can't hear you now. The thing with him is like he can't make any money off of it. No, it's my fault, not yours. He can't make any money from like sales or whatever. But I bet that like if I put it out there for free, like if I screen it for free for everybody, that he'd be okay with it. I'm not real sure. He I emailed him for permission, and he might come back like, I read your review fucking sucks. No, you can't screen it. So who knows?
I'd love to visit St. Augustine just for the history. I mean, I've only been down to Florida for Disney, and I've been to Miami once. So I want to get down there again. I will eventually, but just not this time, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, dude, St. Augustine's so much better than Orlando. Like if you've only ever been to Orlando, you've missed Florida.
Like no, I'm sure about that. That was Orlando doesn't count.
Yeah. So yeah, you should totally. I think I remember like pictures of you and your family at Orlando, because it's not that far from St. Augustine.
We've been to Disney a couple of times. We've enjoyed going down there and staying for a couple of days, and I think since my kids were born, we've gone like 3 times. I've even taken my parents that come from Australia one time, so that was a lot of fun.
Where are your parents? Where are they in Australia?
Well, my whole family is in Australia. I got 2 brothers and a sister, and my parents all live in Brisbane.
Oh,
which is in Queensland.
Yeah. It's one of the 2 places in Australia where I actually know where it is.
So I'm the only one that lives here. I keep telling everybody I married a Jersey girl, and they don't have to pump their own gas. So I thought I might as well move here instead of there.
Is that what it is? You just moved to America for your wife, or did you meet her here?
No,
Are you like a mail order husband?
No, I used to work actually. Of all things, I used to work on a cruise ship, and was on a cruise ship for close to almost 2.5 years. My wife was studying abroad. She wasn't my wife at the time. She studied abroad in England. My ship was a small ship based out of England. She came on for a cruise. We got to know each other. We communicated for a couple of months. My contract ended in the Caribbean, and I had to fly home to Australia. So I was like, well, can I stay with you for a little bit? And she's like, sure. So I flew to New Jersey, and that was in January. By March, we were married.
Wow.
And that was 18 years ago. So, stuck around.
Yeah. Actually, I think I remember you telling me that story on the code bar. Now that you said it, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that was a sweet, but also kind of creepy story. Like she's very trusting.
It was kind of a weird situation. I flew in one day in January, and for the first time met her family like on one day, and then by 3 months later, I had from her family to marry her, and we got married, and like I said, that was 18 years ago. So got my green card, been here ever since.
Nice. Australia is so much fun, or at least I imagine it would be. It would either be like fun or hell, one of the depending on where you were at. Because if you were in like the bush, like if you were in some like not really village, but like town out in the middle of nowhere, I can imagine it being hell.
It depends. It depends on where it is. I mean, the heat is one of the big things. I mean, you're in Florida. You're used to the heat and the humidity. So, I mean, that's the mainstay of a lot of places in Australia. It doesn't ever really get too cold. I'd
Yeah.
never seen snow until I left Australia. So I didn't know what that was until I was on a cruise ship and I actually did some places that had snow, and so at that point I was like, wow, what's this stuff? And then when I got here in New Jersey and experienced my first snowstorm, I actually got pneumonia from it, because I was out scraping my car in my shorts, and I was like, oh, I can do this, and scraping my car. I was scraping my wife's car at the time, and the next couple of days I was coughing and hacking, and went to the doctor, and he's like, you got pneumonia. You gotta stop doing those things in shorts.
You have to buy a jacket.
Yeah, well, I came here without one.
Yeah, it's like I went to Connecticut for John Palancar's thing for like a show, and there was a blizzard the night at the hotel, and I showed up to dinner the night of the blizzard. Like everything was closed, so we had to go to this like one restaurant that was open, and I showed up and I was in shorts and a flannel. And John's like, "Do you not have a jacket?" I was like, "I live in Florida, man. We don't need jackets. What do you?"
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. I flew from Jamaica when I came here. I flew from Jamaica to New Jersey, and it was January, and I flew in on January 4th, and January 5th, after I'd met her family and everything like that for the first time, she took me straight to a department store, and I flew to the country with like $3,000. That was all I had, and the first thing she took me to was a department store. She said, "You need long pants and you need a jacket," and so I got those two things. Was good for the next couple of months, and then eventually managed to find work in construction that would help me stay here for, as all immigrants do. Stayed here for a little bit, and then got my green card, and like I said, been here ever since.
Yeah, when I went to Chicago, it got really cold. It was snowing, and I was like, I'm just gonna go buy a jacket. So I went to the North Face store, and I saw the prices, and I was like, no, I'm gonna sweat it out. I'm gonna tough it out a little bit. The lady at the store was like, well, it'll last you for years. I was like, oh, I need it for a week.
Yep.
So whatever. Anyway, somebody asked me in the comments about the movie thing. Why don't I just show the Palancar interview at the movie theater? And I'm gonna do that too, but it's not long enough. It's not like long enough to rent a movie theater for. And then the documentary is only like an hour long, so I figure if I double featured it, it'd be long enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, I won't do it. I just thought it was cool. Always wanted to see my face on the big screen. So I'm vain. So anyway, let's talk about your podcast. You started live from the Code Bar. It's been like a year now, right? Year and a half, more than that.
It's been a year. It's been a year and a half. Yeah, absolutely. I started the Code Bar. Well, first off, the Code Bar is my bar in my basement here in my house. I bought my house about 2 years ago this month, actually. And one of the selling features, at least for me, not for my wife, but at least for me, was it had a built-in, fully, wet bar in the basement, like a really long bar. And I was just like, I fell in love with that place. So I've sort of decorated it myself like a bar would have, with like things from my own past. But I've also included things like codes and ciphers, a lot of different pictures and stuff like that, especially from some of the different armchair treasure hunts that me and my team that I work on have won. We have some pictures down there, and and stuff like that from some of those different armchair treasure hunts. So so I decided about a year, about a year and a half ago, that there needed to be some sort of a podcast that talked about these things, not just armchair treasure hunts, but treasure, codes, ciphers. Like your podcast does a lot of it. Don't get me wrong with the secret, but it doesn't go into some of the depth of the history of
Yeah.
some of the codes and ciphers, the different treasure hunts. There was all the Fenn tubers out there, and all they focus on is Forrest Fenn, and I wanted to stay away from that sort of thing. In fact, I don't think I'm gonna for a while do an episode on Forrest Fenn, just because it's a minefield. You know, you just want to stay away from that. Which kind of goes into what we'll be talking about a little bit today, of course. But so I wanted to do something that was more about the history, and just talk about the different treasure hunts that are out there, or even the real treasures. Just to give people an idea of what's out there it's a little bit different from everything else.
And that's what made me excited about your podcast, because like for the longest time, people who are podcast fans, people who are puzzle fans and treasure hunt fans, we really only had one podcast. We had Thinking Sideways. And Thinking Sideways was like true crime, puzzles, mysteries, whatever. It was probably the best podcast I've ever listened to in my entire
life.
life.
I love that podcast as well. They did an amazing job. They went over a lot, and they brought in the three different perspectives of what they thought was the puzzle or the mystery or whatever that was that they're discussing. It was a great podcast. Yep. And you're right. It ended. It just sort of like that. It was like, it was over.
Yeah. And they tried to do some spinoffs or something, but none of it ever really worked. But codes and ciphers and puzzles, they never really had that, right? Like you've got people like me who focus on the secret. You got people who focus on Forrest Fenn. But if you're new and you just want to learn about treasure hunts in general, or if you're a code guy especially, you don't have anything, right? There's really nothing out there for you.
There's nothing out there, and not only that, it's not just about the codes and ciphers. There's lots of people that will stand up saying, and I'm not on the podcast, I never stand up to say that I'm the best cipher expert or puzzle expert. I don't have a cast on my wall or anything like that. But I just want people to have an idea of what's going on. Like, I've done some different podcasts on some different ciphers. I did a cross with another podcast called National Treasure podcast. We talked about the Ottendorf on the back of the Declaration of Independence. So therefore, we brought in a little bit about Beale and everything like that. We talked about that. I've done ciphers on Polybius and a couple of other ones, just to sort of explain how they work, but more importantly, like the history behind them, why that's a code that people will see before. And then I try to throw in other episodes of like real treasure that might involve some codes or ciphers, or even some sort of, I did one on Kryptos in the CIA headquarters. Just to show that there's so much out there in terms of everything, codes, ciphers, puzzles, everything.
Did you say Polybius?
Yes.
The video game Polybius, or am I missing something?
I mentioned the video game Polybius briefly in it. No, I talked about the Polybius cipher where it was 1 to 5.
You did the history and everything of it too, right?
It did the history of Polybius and everything like that. Yeah. I didn't go in again. Thinking Sideways did an amazing, and I linked their podcast into my show notes on that episode, because they did an amazing podcast on Polybius itself. So the video game is something completely different.
It's still a cool mystery. It's fake, but it's still a cool mystery.
There's a couple of good podcasts about that as well.
About the video game? Yeah, they all end up with the "it's fake" ending, which it is.
Exactly.
Let me ask you like two things about Kryptos, just because I don't have people on this that I can talk to this stuff about. Do you ever think the fourth square will be solved? And I guess secondarily, do you think the CIA has already solved the fourth square?
I think either the CIA or the NSA have. Just simply because I don't think that's a taunt that they could sort of not not to have. You know,
Like it's in your
why would you have,
backyard.
yeah, it's in your backyard. It's and especially the CIA. It's sitting right there. You know, why would they not have something? Even if they didn't decipher it, maybe they have the answer because the artist is still alive.
Yeah.
You know, so they might have that answer and not even need to decode it. But I think they know what it is because they're the CIA, you know, and they're not going to put something out there that they'd be afraid that it says the CIA is crap, you know, don't listen to
Yeah.
anything they say, you know, and somebody randomly deciphers it and says, oh, this is what it really says, and it's in your front lawn, you know. I don't think the CIA is going to deal with that. So I think they know what that answer is. They're just keeping it a secret.
Do you think it's dependent on the other random stuff that's right around the sculpture?
Yes, I think that's the big difference is, and that's why it's taking so long to solve. Is I think it does involve more than just the scroll part itself. I think that there are other parts in the monument that we as a public won't necessarily get to see.
Yeah.
That I think is part of what's going to sort of break it apart.
I can't remember, like because we recorded an episode for Live at the Code Bar. We actually recorded two, and they were so long ago that I can't remember if we talked about any of these things. So
Well,
if we basically re-record your episode, I'm sorry.
No. Well, two things on that. The first time that we recorded was really early on, and my sound was just terrible. And I was recording at the time in the code bar, and the echoes and the sound, and I was using a laptop, and I was actually connecting via the internet. I connected Skype via the internet, and so the recording was just terrible. So that's why
I remember
I had
that.
you come back on again, and we recorded a great one. We recorded one on Reddit puzzles, on A858, and everything like that. It was a great podcast, a great episode. And then I saved it off of Skype into a folder, and I didn't realize what folder I saved it into. So I just thought, and embarrassingly, I didn't come back to you, of course, but embarrassingly, I was just like, okay, well, I just don't know where this is. And it just disappeared. When we started talking about coming on here on Sunday Fun Day, I was like, I wonder if I still have it. You know, so I started searching through my Dropbox and Google Drives and found it. And so I actually had it edited. And so I did want to actually share this tomorrow. I'm actually releasing that episode. So
cool.
Me and you talking about Reddit puzzles A858, that's going to be released as a live from the Code Bar show tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, I remember when you had sound the first time, the problems with sound the first time. When we did it the second time, I was like, I'm just going to record this. So I was like, so I have a recording around here somewhere too, but that's like, that's something. Oh God, it happens to content creators so much. Like I've got episodes of the podcast I just can't find. I was looking for one. The first episode that John and I ever did on the podcast, the pilot episode, there is a version of it that's completely different than the one that everybody can hear, and only like 30 people have heard it. Because when it came out, like the next day, John was threatened with a lawsuit. So he was like, you gotta get rid of it. You gotta get rid of the whole episode. Let's re-record it. And I'm a data hoarder. I keep everything, but I think this one time I actually legitimately just deleted it, and I can't find it anywhere. Because I was like, if I could find that thing, I'd throw it out in a heartbeat. It was a great episode.
Well, my problem is I'm here in New Jersey myself. I record here. I then save the file as an audio file in either Dropbox or Google Drive. My brother, who is my editor, lives in Australia, in Brisbane. He will then take it out of Google Drive or Dropbox. He will edit it for me. He'll then put it back into Google Drive or Dropbox so I can then pick it back up to release it. So the problem is when I put it in some of these places, sometimes I don't save it with the right name or something like that. It'll just sit there and it'll just say a recording from X date. And I'll just think, oh, maybe that's one I did before. And I just forgot about it. And so moving on, as I said, I was just embarrassed. I didn't come back to you saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't release it. But
It happens.
You know, eventually I did find it, and like I said, I will be definitely releasing it in honor of you having me on tonight. So I'll be releasing that tomorrow.
I would have just like twisted your arm and forced you to do a secret episode. Like it doesn't even have to have me on it. I don't give a shit. Just do one. I kind of want to hear that.
I am planning on that. The problem with the secret, and you know this, is there's just so much. You know, do I do it on the whole thing? Do I do it focus on individual one for each city? You know, and then you've got and this is the big thing. You've got all the different sides of the secret. You know, you've got all the different people involved, the different you know, the one side that believes it's this, that's explained this way, others that explain it's this way, people that explain it's totally different cities. You know, it's just so much that, like, that's why your podcast is great, because you can focus on all those different things, because that's what your podcast is about. But on a podcast where I try to do, you know, 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes as a podcast, putting the whole thing of the secret in a 45-minute sort of time frame just is not going to work. You know, I mean, it's just, I think I'm going to have to break it up over several episodes. Not doing it individual cities. I don't think that's going to work for me. So I'll break it up over several different episodes. And I do want to get lots of different different people on, like yourself. I do want to get like Ashley, who's coming on in a few moments. You know, she's big on it as well. But a lot of other people that I've spoken with in the community that are big on the secret as well. Just getting maybe even doing a round table about it, that sort of thing. So if it is coming down the line.
If I could throw a bug in your ear, something that nobody's ever done, and I've thought about it, but it's a whole lot of work, is the history of the secret. Like, instead of focusing on how people are solving the secret, like how the secret came to be. Because we've got enough.
That's what I want. That's what I think I'm going to do. That's what my podcast likes to do. I mean, a lot of my episodes that I have launched out there for the different armchair treasure hunts, especially, or treasure hunts, that's what I've gone ahead and done. Is done a breakdown of the history. You know, sometimes talking about the puzzles themselves, how they were broken, but the majority of the time, like my first 2 episodes to launch the podcast were on Masquerade. How can you not do a podcast on treasure hunting and start with Masquerade? That's what basically started it all. And again, going into what we were going to talk about today with ethics and everything like that, it's a big one because it ended in controversy. You know,
it set the stage.
The first
for sure.
big treasure hunt ended in controversy. You know, so it only went up and downhill from there. You know.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Masquerade. So Masquerade was huge, right? It was a bigger treasure hunt than probably Forrest Fenn is now, or Forrest Fenn was at its peak.
At the time it was, and I think it was because it was so new. There was nothing like it. I mean, Forrest Fenn is weird in the fact that it did create its own community. You know, there's people that are just Fenn, and there's, you know, this side and there's this side, and you know, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, it's a craziness. Masquerade, because it was before the days of the internet, it was, you know, people writing letters, people actually going out there and digging holes, sometimes in the front lawn of somebody's house, because they thought that this is what it led to. You know, it has a lot of similarities to The Secret, because people read it in different ways, saying, oh, I think it means this, that's why I'm right, and that's why I'm digging in this location. Similar to like The Secret, you know, people all have their own theories of where everything is, you know, and even down to every day, I look at the different groups, the Facebook groups. Everybody always has an idea of where it is. Oh, I think it's here. Oh, I watched Expedition Unknown last night, and I think I know where the San Francisco one is. It's hidden here. You know, just because they watched it last night. You know, there's been people who've been working on this for years, and they're like, well, you know, one night watching Expedition Unknown, and you know where it is already. You know, But that's the way Masquerade was. But it was all done through, word of mouth, letters. Um, there's a great book, and I mention it in the podcast by Bamba Gascon. Um, it was all about sort of what happened after the treasure hunt. It included a bunch of letters from actual real people, and it was just amazing when you read that book. I know you're probably going to bring it down. I have it up in my library upstairs. Yeah, that's the one. Quest for the Golden Hair. Yep, great book. It includes the real letters from people that actually wrote to Kit Williams and said, "Oh, this is what I think it is." People writing to him saying, "I think that there is no treasure because what you're really writing about is God." People, and then down to the ones that are people like, "Oh, I think it's buried right here in this location because this plus this equals that." It's really, really interesting. And then the kids part about it too. A lot of the kids' letters, like kids writing to him saying, "Oh, I love what you've done," because originally what he did was he wanted to create something that was for kids.
Yeah. I have no idea how a kid could solve that, but yeah.
No.
But I think
no kid could have solved that.
that's one of the keys, I think, for the Masquerade. Have you seen the Xavier Marks, the book yet?
Yeah. I've been working on it.
Xavier Marks is the same way, The Secret kind of as well.
Yep.
It brings it's a puzzle for adults, but it brings kids in, and it makes it. I think it makes adults feel like kids again. And I love treasure hunts like that, as opposed to something like A858 where it's just a code that's sitting in front of you. You're an adult. You're using your adult brain.
No, and Xavier Marks is great. That's a great example. Like, it reads as a kid's book, and you could just read it as a kid's book, and go past it, which is similar to what Masquerade did.
Yeah.
The Secret, if you take everything that's involved with The Secret, from the treasure hunt, the verses, the images, and then everything afterwards, it's a great book just to sit and read. I have a copy. I have 2 copies. My son has a copy because he wanted a copy just for himself, and he's 10. He doesn't know how to break down the verses or what everything means, but he's still interested in the idea of it. He's like, okay, here's treasure, and I've been treasure hunting, armchair treasure hunting for about 2.5, probably close to about 4 years now, and I've tried to always include my son anytime I do something to say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Do you think this is good? Do you think that's good? One of the big ones that I did, one of the first ones that I actually ever solved, I solved with Nick Spira. Me and him worked together for close to almost a year, maybe a little bit closer to about 9 months, on a book called The Lost Skull by Robert Brewer.
I was going to bring that one down, but I don't see it.
Yeah, so as soon as it was launched after Kickstarter, we didn't even know about it on Kickstarter, but as soon as it was launched after Kickstarter, me and him worked on it, and we met through Mysterious Writings, through like Fandango, which again we'll bring up later. But we met just trying to work on different treasure hunts. He's in Florida, I'm up here. We just started working, and then when Lost Skull comes out, we're like, well, do you want to focus on this? So we did. For the longest time, we had no clue what to do. We were trying to work stuff out. There was just one clue that was talking about pumpkin rolling, and all of a sudden we did some Google searching, and we found this like little town called Chagrin Falls in Ohio. And he's like, it kind of fits the whole idea of what this kind of verse, because it was a similar thing to The Secret. There was a verse and an image. You solve them both. It sort of takes you to a place. At that place, you took something from that place, and if you then put it all together at the end, it was like 12 things. It came out to a full GPS location. So we worked on this for like 9 months. December 2019, me and my son from New Jersey, we hopped in a car at like 8 a.m. in the morning on like it was actually about 1 a.m., 1 p.m. in the afternoon, on a Friday afternoon, and we drove from New Jersey to Ohio. It's about 6.5 hours. We got there the next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. We went out to the park where we knew this thing was somewhere in this park, and we had metal detector out. We were searching. We spent the whole day searching this park in the middle of Ohio. It was freezing cold. We drove around. We saw some of the locations from the book. We eventually came back. My son got sick, so we drove all the way back, but we didn't find it. Me and Nick worked a little bit longer. Finally, in February, we were like, okay, we now know where we think it is. It has to be within this small period, small location inside the park. And it turns out there's this labyrinth in the park. We're like, it has to be there. So Nick flew up from Florida. He flew into Cleveland because it was just outside Cleveland. I again drove out from Jersey just by myself this time, no son. Met at this hotel for the first time at 8 p.m. on a Friday night. Never met each other. We'd only ever talked and talked on forums. Met each other for the first time in this hotel. We're like, let's go straight out to the park. We were out in the park until midnight that night, digging holes. It has to be here. It has to be here. We then went back to the hotel, stayed the night. The next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, we were back in the park. Again, digging more holes. It's we have to be there. We have to be there. Eventually, we're like, well, GPS locations are only good sometimes within 5 feet. So you could be digging a hole right here, and it could be right there. So eventually, we contacted the author who lived in the area. We're like, we've solved everything. It's all solved. Here's our solve. We presented our full solve to him. He's like, here's our GPS location. Here's our hole at that exact GPS location. And it's like, we're going to keep digging holes in this labyrinth all day long. It's like, we're not stopping. But if you can give us anything, because, GPS is not reliable down to a foot marking, could you do anything? And he actually came down to the park. And it was about maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we'd been digging since 6 in the morning. And he comes in and he's like, this hole that you have right here, he goes, dig half a foot across. And we dig, and Nick dug half a foot across, and there it was. It was this little, the thing was, the author had told us that he'd put some bolts in it. It was a little Tupperware container. He'd put some bolts in there so that you could detect it with a metal detector. Well, number one, they couldn't be detected with a detector. And then number two, where he'd buried it in this labyrinth, the whole labyrinth itself, because it was laid out with trees, was laid out using mesh on the ground, so the trees grew in the right location. So we couldn't even use a metal detector in there no matter what. But we were half a foot away from one of our first holes that we dug. And when we dug that thing up, and it was just magical. We were in the middle of Ohio, in the middle of this labyrinth, in the middle of this random park, and the two of us who'd never met before were digging this thing up, and we spent all day just visiting the different sites. We even went out to the Cleveland Cultural Gardens and took our picture at the secret location and everything like that. So that was my first win. It was $1,000. We split it between the two of us. It covered for his flight, and it covered for my gas out there, and back, and a hotel and stuff. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that we solved this thing. We were there, and anybody that might dig up a cask or does these sorts of adventures or treasure hunts, they don't do it for the money unless it's the really big ones. But
Yeah.
you just do it for the fact that it's fun. You were the first one to do it. You were the first one to solve it, and that was amazing.
Yeah. I think that illustrates a really great point. You can make a treasure hunt that's amazing. You can make it engaging. You can make it fun. It can be popular. As soon as you put that treasure underground, you've made it 1,000 times harder.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I grew up reading treasure stories in Australia. I actually even for a brief period of time studied archaeology at college just because it was interesting. I grew up reading Dirk Pitt stories, Clive Cussler. It was for me, treasure was like, oh man, I want to one day find a buried treasure. I worked on a cruise ship. I was in the Caribbean. I heard the stories of pirate treasure, all those sorts of things. But to actually this one day in a cold morning in February, I dug up a treasure. You know, it wasn't worth doubloons or gold bars or anything like that, but I will always remember that I dug up a buried treasure in Ohio, and it was just amazing. I was there. You know, it wasn't like I said, "Oh, here's where I think that the location is." I was actually there. You know, and it was amazing.
Well, you guys got a cool prize. Didn't you get like a crystal skull?
Yeah, we got these like really cool skulls, and me and Nick did was we actually bought a second one, and so what we do is actually periodically we haven't done it for about half a year now, but we try to swap them around. So at one point, one of us has the one we bought, and one of us has the real one, and then we'll mail each other the other ones, and we'll swap them around every half year to a year. It's been like I said, it's been little bit of a while, but we try to do that every half year to a year.
It's such a fun story. Like, and it had to be so fun to, because it's a treasure hunt that ended well. It was done by a good guy. Like, Robert is such an awesome dude. His art is amazing. The book was really good. Like, it's a great memory to have, as opposed to something like Masquerade.
Exactly. Well, since that time, me and him and Nick, we've become really good friends. We actually periodically, we haven't for a little while, but we actually periodically we do role playing games with him because he's big into role playing games. He does a lot of art for role playing games. So we actually do some Monsters of the Month role playing games with him every now and then. So we've kept in contact a lot. Robert was actually the one that did a lot of the art for the Code Bar, you know, for my podcast. Nick did all the music. Robert Brewer did all the artwork. So we've kind of become good friends since then.
It's a good thing to have a team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've
grown the team a little bit since then.
yeah. I heard like you guys you got a fairly decent sized team of treasure hunters now. At least in regards to the Incredible Hunt.
Well, the Incredible Hunt is something that we started with, and we'll bring that up more a little bit later. But we started with it. We haven't, as a team, we haven't worked a lot on it because it hasn't. It's not something that. When we created our team, there was a lot of us that joined because we all had our strengths and weaknesses. I am fairly good at some codes and ciphers, not perfect or anything like that, but Nick is really, really good because he did start with something like Fandango and The Secret. He's really good at reading a verse, but really good at picking out images and picking out what's in an image. You know, what's important in an image, what it can mean, where it could be. And since we did Lost Skull, we then went on with Ashley and Brody, in fact, and the four of us won Letters of Saint Germain, written by Lisa Finch. An awesome treasure hunt that had a searching all around for different locations across the United States, and then finally pointing into Flagstaff, and you had to find this exact location in Flagstaff of where we didn't have to actually go there this time, which was good because I wasn't flying to Flagstaff. But we pointed to this end location, and then we did end with the codes and everything like that, and won. That one, Nick just went boss mode, and like for 72 hours, he didn't sleep. He just like went wild trying to solve this thing, and we ended up winning it. So when we did win that, we then moved on to other ones. We did a couple other ones, and actually Lisa, who did Letters of Saint Germain, joined our team. So it was for a little while. It was just me, Nick, and Lisa, and then a fourth guy from England joined us. His name was Adam. He writes for the website areasgrey.com. It's all about treasure. So between the four of us, we then tackled one of the first treasure hunts I ever actually worked on, which is called Bosal treasure. This thing had been buried for like 9 years.
Yeah, I remember that.
In the marsh in Lytham, England. And we just worked on it as the four of us for close to about 6 or 7 months. Finally broke what we thought was important. We kind of narrowed it down to a smallish area. And then with a couple more things, we actually worked out where exactly was. So we contacted the author and said, this is exactly where it is. It's buried at this exact location, Lytham Marsh. Um, you have to go this way, X amount of steps, blah, blah, blah. And eventually he came back to us, and he was a Sikh gentleman. So he was an older guy. He wrote back to us saying, don't do any more research. I'm going to get back to you in a little bit. Took him about 2 weeks, and he got back to us saying, you guys won. Um, and then he actually went with his family out to the marsh, to the exact location, dug it up. It had been there for 9 years, dug it up, gave it to Lisa. Lisa went to meet him, gave it to Lisa. She then sent it. She came back with it to the United States, and Nick had that cross replicated. So all four of us have one of those crosses. Nick actually has the real one, but all four of us actually have a replica plated exact copy of the cross that we can keep everywhere. Mine's in the code bar, of course. But yeah, so that was 9 years, and that was a pretty big solve as well. So pretty proud of that one.
I've always wondered how that would feel. Like for a guy like him, you put out a treasure hunt. If you're not in the internet age, right, it's 9 years ago. He's an older guy, so he's not hip to Facebook or whatever, If you're not in the internet age, it's hard to gain. It's hard to see progress on your hunt, right? You lose enthusiasm really quickly. And then 9 years later, somebody just messages you and you're like, hey, we've been working on this, not, really, really hard. We're super interested in it and we solved it. Like, to get that email, it has to be an amazing feeling. I've always thought about, there's a guy's named Kim from the Golden Apple Tale, right? It's a treasure hunt that came out before The Secret. Nobody, you can't find a copy of the book.
It's 40 years old. That one's almost 40 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't find a copy of the book. I've seen one physical copy of it ever, and I've looked really, really hard. And it's just like, what would it feel like for him 40 years later, for somebody to call him and be like, hey, people are still looking at your hunt? Well, I asked that question because I think a while back we figured out who he was, and I was thinking about calling him, but like, it's got to be a great feeling.
Well, I mean, that goes into a lot of what we were going to talk about. Bringing it up, let's start with Fandango. Fandango was a great treasure hunt that was written almost 9 years ago as well. It was it's quite a few years old. The guy wrote the artwork's pretty good. The story was okay. He wrote this story about how this fox was trying to bring a key to the wind. And he ended up burying a token on desert island near Arcadia National Park in Maine. So you kind of knew where it was. It was in this general area of this island, at least. So me and Nick started working on that, and we worked on it pretty hard. And Nick always went back to it. It was his thing. He always went back to it, saying, "Oh, I think I got this from Fandango," and there was colored borders. It was very reminiscent of Masquerade. Jenny Kyle on Mysterious Writings did a lot of it on it as well. She was big into it. But he had a hard end. His was I think it was 2019 again, but he said, Thanksgiving 2019, if nobody solves it by then, I'm going to dig it up. I'm going to show you where I did it, present my solve, and donate the winnings, donate the prize to somewhere. That came and that happened. And he released the solve, and it disappointed a lot of people.
Yeah.
The solve just ended up being something like, it was only you only used 1 or 2 pages from the whole book, and it really didn't point you to where we're thinking it should have pointed you to. I always, when I was talking with Nick, I always had this theory that this guy, because he wrote it so long ago, I think he really did hide the token in the national park, but it was before the rules, and again, I think it comes back to Fenn, that you can't hide or take anything from a national park. You can't put geocaches in, anything like that. And I think he put the token in the national park, but then this new rule came in and he couldn't say, oh, well, I put it in the national park, but you can't go get it now. You know, I think he covered himself by waiting for the time to come out, you know, getting a solve that kind of looks okay and says, no, it's really over here, you know, not in the park, and, you know, gives the money away. So personally, I think that one is probably one of the first ones I wanted to talk about, is that, like, I don't know if the ethics was right there. You know, I don't know if the ending was really what everybody was expecting.
Well, so I don't know a whole lot about Fandango. I avoided that thing like the plague. But what I know about the ending is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think on the back of the book there was a color-coded compass, right? And you were meant to fold pages in a certain way to where you would make that color-coded compass. And when you folded the pages that way, the colored border would make a number. And then you take those numbers, combine them, and they create latitude and longitude coordinates, which
Something
point
like
you
that,
to...
yeah.
point you to the token, but the end number was a 1, right? So you would fold the page and it was just a line. It was nothing, which confused the shit out of people. People like didn't understand that that was a number, and they were all over the place because you desperately needed that last number. Like, it was just bad. But I mean, I don't know.
Ended terrible. Like, in the end, it was just like, I was one of the many. There was people that was like trying to say, oh, you know, they were writing to the author. And the second thing about that one as well is that the author wasn't really involved. You know, there was people trying to contact the author saying, oh, I think it's this. Or maybe even near the end, they were trying to contact the author to try and extend it out longer than the Thanksgiving ending date, you know, because they wanted more time, blah, blah, blah. In the end, the author, he was just not responsive. And that's the difference between a lot of hunts these days. I mean, you can't really say that with the Secret, of course, but and there's other ones that, you know, are just not that way. But some of the big, good hunts, the creator is right there. And we'll talk about this with the Incredible Hunt. The author, the creator, he's there. He's involved. He's tweeting. He's putting it on Facebook. He's involved. And if you message him, he's going to message you back. You know that, you know, he's going to see what you're doing, and know that you're right or wrong or whatever. A lot of creators, at least the older ones, they just weren't that involved. They hoped that it was going to make money for them, and when it didn't, like Fandango, when it didn't make money, he probably ended up losing money out of this thing. He just sort of stepped away from it, going, okay, well, I'll just wait for this thing to end. I never have to tell everybody if they're right or wrong, because, you know, I'm the only one that knows where the answer is. And I always had that feeling of Fandango. Nick was always, I love Nick, and me and him have been working on teams, and I always will. Nick will be my ride or die when it comes to treasure hunting. But he always went back to Fandango saying, oh, I think it's this. And I was just always like in the back of my head going, I just don't think it's there at all. You know, I think he knows where it is. He's not going to tell you the right location, because then he's having to prove that he's wrong.
See, like, your plus side for the creator being in the hunt is my absolute downside, because I can't think of a hunt that's failed that hasn't failed because of the author of the hunt. Masquerade failed because of the author of the hunt. Fandango apparently failed because of the author of the hunt. I would even say maybe not directly because of the author, but Fenn ultimately went like burned to ash because of Forrest Fenn. Right? The creators of these hunts being involved, it leaves too much room.
Level.
Yeah, it definitely depends on their level. Like, I think the Great U.S. Treasure Hunt guys, they're doing it great. They're like, we put this thing out there, we'll tweet, we'll do some memes or whatever. You go solve it, awesome. We'll hang out. But when you get people who are directly involved in their community, it leaves way too much room for manipulation, or for I feel weird saying this, but inside information, or for favoritism, or, you know, censorship. So that's my biggest downside. Like, I always feel like if you create a hunt, if it's a good hunt, you put it out there, it's going to stand on its own 2 feet. You don't need PR. You don't need to be involved. You don't need you being involved is only a negative after you publish the hunt. But I don't know. That's just me.
You're right, and it depends on like, to give you an example that of one of the worst examples of that I've ever heard of in armchair treasure hunting. I don't know if you ever heard of the tumble bear load. So
No.
there was this guy. He did a YouTube video. Basically, you don't ever see his face, but this whole video, you see him walking up into the forest, basically digging this huge big hole, dumping this load of silver coins into this hole, basically lightly covering it. Then you see him like pan around where he is, so you get sort of an idea of where he might be just from this video. And then the end of the video is really cool. He goes down to this like lake that was at the bottom of this place. He gets on this like little raft that he has built. He sits on this raft that has like a fire on it, and he lights up a cigar, and he's just sitting there on this raft. And he goes, "Go find my silver." All right. So it was a cool video. I watched the thing about maybe 5 or 6 times. Really, really cool. Okay, so on to pair with the video, he had a website, and where he put some basic information about the hunt. And one of the things he had was this like giant map, and basically it was almost like one of these things, like a pinpointer thing. You could pay and have part of the map cleared, like it was all blurred, and you could basically pay and you could have part of the map unblurred, and it sort of so it was very much a pay to play hunt. Okay, so those that wanted to throw money at this thing could have had the map cleared out pretty quickly. That caused controversy, so he started getting a lot of bad messages on the YouTube video, and then eventually people actually started finding out who he was through the YouTube video, through like these deep diving things that people always do. They went deep. They found him. They found his family. They contacted him. They started reaching out to him. They started saying stuff to him. And eventually he came back and said, I think he did another video of it, but basically he just went back in there, took the silver and said, "The hunt's over. Goodbye." And that was it. Walked away.
I don't blame him.
And that was all within the space of maybe a week. Like, he released this video, had this backlash, dug up the treasure, walked away, and that was it. I mean, so I can see the ethics of what he was doing. You know, people were pissed that he did this pay to play with this map. And that's one of the first things that people kept saying is why, you know, people that have more money than me, you know, can get this map, and maybe they have more of an advantage and blah, blah, blah. But then they went further. You know, they reached out to him, and they reached out to his family. And this has happened with your experience with The Secret. This has happened with Forrest Fenn. When treasure hunters go too far, you know, they think that they are not they think that they're not going too far, but they go too far by pushing something that is not part of the hunt. Yeah. And you know, that's it. This guy just called it. He just was done.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a fine line. There's a really fine line between, I guess, contacting somebody respectfully and doxing someone and their family. Like, the general rule is, if somebody doesn't want to be, it's Ashley. If somebody doesn't want to be contacted, don't contact them. They'll contact you. That was sort of my rule with the Secret people. Like, to start the conversation with Joella and with Ben, with John, I didn't contact them. They contacted me first. There was like weird situations for it, but that was my general rule. Like, if you don't want to be contacted, I'm going to leave you alone. So I don't. Yeah. Hi, Ashley. Oh, look, Ashley has wine.
Yeah, it's just a placeholder for the drink that I created, but that I'm not going to make. That Jeremy's going to make. So he is making it.
Oh. Should we have a drink? Robert, would you like to have a drink?
And I don't make drinks either.
Well, so, I've got a good one that I was going to share later on. So,
do you want to do it later on, or do you want to have a drink while we talk?
we can have a drink while we talk. I mean, that's what
All
the
right.
code bar is all about.
So do you want to explain the code bar tradition or?
So, I mean, I haven't done it a lot in the past couple of episodes just because I wanted to focus on the story. But in the first, a lot of podcasts that I did, one of the things I wanted to do was like create a drink based around what you're talking about. When I was talking about, say, for instance, I talked about Masquerade, I did a type of shandy mixing Blue Moon beer with orange juice. Actually, it was really interesting. So, no, it actually wasn't that bad because
right.
they always say you put like an orange, into the Blue Moon and everything like that. So there's been other ones that I've created along the line. So the one that I was creating for our talk tonight, I know that when people listen to the show tomorrow, when I release the new podcast tomorrow, I know you came up with one for the podcast. I'm not going to spoil it, but the one I came up with for tonight, and I'm using a very special Code Bar branded glass.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So I'm going to start with some ice. Okay. Putting it in your glass. Okay. And then half an ounce of moonshine. All right.
Smoky.
Start with about half an ounce of moonshine. This one's not going to be for the faint of heart, that's for sure. All right. And then
you're hanging out with me and Ashley. It can't be.
a full ounce of overproof rum, white rum.
Jesus.
All right. So
Yeah, mine's not going to be that fancy, but
so once you've done that,
you're gonna have to
all right.
explain
This one is what I like to call this one the treasure hunt. Okay, and it's called the treasure hunt because you don't know what you're going to get at the end. All right. Then to top it all off, you got to have Bundaberg ginger beer.
Oh, yum.
Now this is made in Australia. Now I normally drink this stuff with my rum, get from Australia, called Bundaberg rum, which I don't have any left of because it's been nearly 2.5 years since somebody from Australia has visited me. So I know you can get this in places like Costco, but when you top off that drink, the overproof rum, the moonshine, and the ginger beer, you have yourself a treasure hunt.
Nice.
So that's my drink for tonight.
That is a hardcore drink.
Right?
We're gonna get you sloshed and ask some inside information questions about
That's right. None of my family is home tonight. It's just me. They're all down the Jersey Shore.
So Ashley, did we go? So Ashley, you don't have your drink yet?
No, he is making it right now, and I'm gonna have him explain it because I don't know what's really in it.
You're
I just
getting
know
Jeremy on here.
I just know it tastes good. Hey, hush!
You just know it tastes good. That's fine.
I do know it tastes good. Made it for
Troy
me in the past.
Troy would like you to
Good.
publish that recipe, Robert.
I will. I will.
Yes.
So my idea was simple. I got a glass. This is gonna suck for tomorrow. And I got a very specific whiskey. It's Rabbit Hole.
Well, there's a story behind this.
High
Oh,
Gold
yeah.
whiskey. Yeah. Did I do this one in the other?
That's why. Go ahead. No, I want you
Oh,
to
okay.
share it. That's. What
I
this is
can't
all about.
remember. So this was a gift from some very special treasure hunters to sort of the podcast team a while back, before John passed away. And the High Gold is integral in the secret. So you take your glass, you take your whiskey, and you pour this very specific whiskey in this glass. And you have to enjoy this with friends. And it's called the Tribute.
Oh,
there you
that's
go,
a good
Robert.
name.
Now, isn't there a story behind the whiskey though? That's what when you. I mean, do you want to wait till people listen to the
Yeah.
podcast to get it?
Let them listen to it there.
Okay. Right.
There's some cool story. Yeah. I don't want to get
No, I
better
remember
because I couldn't remember exactly what I did. And because it's been a while since that podcast episode. It's hard to be a little vague. It's really good though. Do you have any of this?
Which one? What is it again?
High Gold from Rabbit
No,
Hole?
I don't have any high gold. No.
We got to get you a bottle of this. when you can like.
I think that we have some, but I'm not sure if it's that blue label or not.
They make a bunch of them. They make high gold and
Yeah.
then something else.
That's
It comes
how I
from
classify whiskey and bourbon is like based on the label, like what it has on the bottle. So I'm like, yeah, that bottle with the deer on the side of it, or the bottle that's got the blue on the front of it. That's how I like classify them. It's my own like, system.
Ashley just casually throwing out she got some blue label in her house.
Oh, the Johnny Walker. So that's a funny story. We actually have like a little small bottle that we bought. Like it's like this big because he wanted to try it, and we both tried it, and it was like wait, what? He normally doesn't drink scotch, so he was like, we were both like.
Ashley's husband is a whiskey connoisseur, like hardcore.
He just likes bourbon a lot. But
I was a rum person for the biggest time. It was all rum. It was particularly just drinking my own rum from back home in Australia, Bundaberg rum. But I was drinking when I couldn't get that rum here. I was trying all different type of rums. It's a dark rum, by the way, not like the white no spice shit or anything like that. It was like proper rum. But just couldn't get the same thing here. So I did try a lot of different bourbons, and now that I have a bar downstairs, I'll buy like the little bottles sometimes and try that out, and then put them in. And then if I like that, I'll buy a whole bottle for the bar and be like, okay, this is needed. It's part of the bar now. It's part of the code bar.
We have a comment. Has anyone ever heard of a book called The Gold Bug by Edgar Allan Poe?
Yes. Well, yes.
No. Somebody tell me about it. No. One of the first stories I really enjoyed involving a treasure hunt was the gold bug, especially with the code in there and everything like that.
Yeah, the gold bug cipher.
And then how some people have even tied gold bug and Edgar Allan Poe into Beale and everything like that as well. It's some interesting stories.
That's nuts. Like Beale, like how can you look at Beale and not be like, this is fake?
Oh yeah, no, I'm 100% of the fake opinion. I mean, even down to it's surprisingly that only the one page that was deciphered is the one that tells you how much treasure is there.
Yeah.
Not who buried it and not where it's buried, but how much treasure's there.
Well, wasn't that first one like when they published the ad for the cipher? Didn't they publish the solution as well? They were like, "Here's how you decipher
like
it."
That, yeah, and even down to like the Declaration of Independence that was used was like an older version or a different type of version. So it's not like you can use the normal Declaration of Independence for it either. So I mean, it's weird. But I think it was done to sell the pamphlets that the guy originally sold.
So here's a good segue. You've got stuff like that, right? And then you have all of these new hunts popping up, like left and right, just constantly new hunts. How do you avoid something like that? How do you avoid somebody that's just out to scam you? That's always been tricky with me because people are always like, George, can we promote this? Like, yeah.
It's tricky with anything. I mean, another example I share is Houston's Booty. Did you hear about that one?
Was that the one that was found in like 5 minutes or something? Somebody doxed the Instagram account? Yeah.
Basically, similar to like I was talking about with Tumble Bear before, this guy, and my opinion, and I'll keep it as this, is that it's my opinion, is that this was a load of crap. There was no treasure because, you think of like somebody finds a cask, they have people interested in them. If you found it, not if you have a theory or have an idea of where you think it's buried, but if you actually find one, somebody's going to knock on your door saying, tell me your story. Same with, you look at the great US treasure hunt that's going on right now. Even the creator of that, they're like every day they're like, well, the Austin one just happened just yesterday, right? And he was all over social media saying, oh, this is solve these clues. It's in Austin, and then he put all the winners, like down to the 5th place winner. He put pictures up of these people. Okay. This Houston's Beauty was supposed to be worth $300,000. And I'm sorry, somebody finds $300,000. You don't think that that's going to be on the news?
Yeah.
There was nothing about that. There was nothing about the winner being on the news. And even if he wanted to be anonymous, there still should have been a news article written about guy finds $300,000 in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
I just think that one I think was a scam of some sort. Now, you didn't have to buy anything, so I don't know how.
Yeah, it would have been a weird scam. Like
it's for fame.
The guy, fame is a good one because the guy legitimately.
It's amazing, like what people will go through to get their name, to feel like famous. The whole Josh Gates thing is a prime example of that. Especially with The Secret, because people have this idea that they're going to find something and like Josh Gates is going to knock on their door, and maybe they will. But wait, Jeremy, you have to come and explain this drink because this is how we do it. We talk about what's in it, how much is in it. And you have to do it like kind of fancy, like say it really fancy.
Jeremy's the secret PR person. Everybody he meets, he has to introduce to The Secret, even though he says he doesn't like The Secret and doesn't work on it. What's up, Jeremy?
What's up, George? How you been?
Good. Congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you, buddy. It only took 17 years.
It was worth the wait, I'm sure.
Well, I had to figure out if she was, the right one.
So I named this drink Blackbeard's Blueberry Basil Margarita, mainly because it was the first thing that I could think of beverage related that started with a B. But he's going to explain what's in it.
So it's a basic margarita, not really basic. There's nothing basic about it. So it starts out with fresh basil leaves, about a teaspoon of raw sugar, a couple of fresh blueberries, muddle that all together, add 1 ounce of lime juice, 1 ounce of, this one is Don Julio Respirado. I like the Respirado because of the oakiness. Me, I'm a bourbon guy, so I like my woody shit. And then it's also got, so it's 2 ounces of Don Julio and 1 ounce of Grand Marnier. And ounce of lime juice, shaken heavily over ice, and semi-strained, and that's it.
Very good. You did so good.
Nice. A drink where nothing is simple.
You're gonna have to send me the recipe so I can put that down in the code bar as well. Because I'm eventually gonna create like a little menu of the code bar. I'm actually working with somebody right now to create a web page for the podcast. I'm gonna actually make it look like it's a bar, and when you open up the menu, it's actually all of the podcast episodes in the menu, and then on the other page is all the drinks from the podcast. So you'll have to send me the recipe for that one for sure.
Very cool.
Nice.
That'll be nice. I stole my drink from Sinatra. It was in like a cookbook. So it'll be nice to have mine written just like his. Put ice in glass, pour whiskey over ice, drink.
That's my favorite one so far.
There was another one too.
He had the rabbit one.
Rabbit hole?
Yeah, rabbit hole. The Heigold. There was another in the cookbook. It was like so there were 2 pages, right? It was bookended, and on one side was Dean Martin's hamburger recipe, and it was gorgeous, like down to the types of meat you needed to grind together, the different spices, how long you cook it to get perfect medium rare, the perfect bun. And the next page was Sinatra's burger recipe, which was steal Dino's hamburger, have him make me a drink.
Love it.
Awesome.
So anyway,
guys, I'm gonna let y'all get back to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thanks for the drink.
You'll see him in
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're coming. Sweet.
Yes.
We have to have there's a special place that we have to go have a drink because they have a menu that I want you to see. So remind me of that.
I'm there.
All right, cool.
All right. Thank y'all.
Have a good night.
You too.
So I completely forgot about what we were talking about. Oh yeah, getting scammed. Let's talk. Let's go back to the source, right?
Mhm.
Masquerade. Masquerade was the best treasure hunt with the worst ending that could ever possibly happen to a treasure hunt. Essentially, it was, just for people who don't know, Masquerade was the number one, the best, like the prime example of an armchair treasure hunt. Came out super popular, with a person that was very, he had the ethics of a good treasure hunt.
It was a figure. You knew who Kit Williams was. And I talk about this in my podcast just to cut you off, but he specifically wanted to create this based on his art because he was an artist, and so he did this around his art, and he was like, I need to create this, I need to do this, and I want to do it my way, and he basically railroaded the publishing company into doing that, and because they wanted to have him to do a book. They originally just wanted to do like a coffee table book of his art, and he's like, no, we're going to do a kids treasure hunt book, and it's going to have my art in it, but it's going to be a treasure. And he made the hair, the golden hair. He made the prize. It wasn't like he just went out and bought it. He actually, hammered that shit out and made that himself.
And he spent 2 years locked in a shed creating this hunt from scratch with no,
from the artwork to the words, everything.
Yeah, with no past examples, nothing to work off of, straight from his head. And it became an international sensation and was destroyed because he had a girlfriend. Like the entire hunt became a trash can, or like a dumpster fire, because he had a girlfriend, and his girlfriend knew kind of where it was. And I guess they broke up, and she told her current boyfriend.
She heard enough of him talking about it over those 2 years that she had an idea of where she thought it was, that she then ended up telling another guy who then partnered with somebody else. So there was like, in the end, it was like she told somebody who then told somebody, and then he ended up digging. He was the one that ended up digging it up. Now, there's different stories about it, but ultimately what it was is he dug it up. This guy, Dougal, I think his name was, last name was Dougal, ended up digging it up. Every time that he went on TV after that, because he was this winner and everybody knew the Masquerade, so he was on TV, he always sort of kept his face sort of covered and tried to hide himself. And it turns out that wasn't really his name. And, it got out that he, knew something from this girlfriend. Now, I read somewhere, I think it was from Bamber Gascoigne's book, that the actual people that had actually solved it. So this guy, this Dougal guy, he'd sent a map to Kit Williams saying, this is where it is. And Kit Williams basically dropped everything and said, yep, you're right, that's where it is. Okay. He hadn't actually dug it up yet. So he went out to this Dougal guy went out to dig it up. And apparently there was already 2 people digging it up at this location. But what they'd done is, I don't know how they did it, but they missed the actual whatever it was. He did describe it in the book as being like this like.
You've never seen a picture of it?
I've seen pictures of it, but it was like covered in wax and stuff like that, to keep it like secure. They had missed it, so they put it in like their spoils pile, and he came along, basically took it out of there, and said, "Oh look, I found it," And so he got all the notoriety for it. These 2 guys who were like school teachers, they got nothing. He went on to get, to try and leave the prize, and created like this terrible computer game that never had an ending.
I gotta go get that now.
And in the end, that even went bankrupt. So yeah, you're right. It ended in total controversy. In the end, the two guys that actually dug it up, I think even if you look at Wikipedia, they mention that they are the actual winners. But the controversy just totally overshadowed that.
Yeah, I think Kit Williams felt really bad about that, and then kind of just went in. I mean, he was always reclusive, but he went way deep into hiding after that happened. I mean, it essentially,
there wasn't much after that.
In the beginning, it destroyed his reputation. I guess I think people figured it out towards later on and didn't really hold it against Kit, but it destroyed his reputation for a while.
Oh, yeah.
This is the game they created. It's weird to see a game on a cassette, but like it's one of the biggest scams in gaming history because like looking at the code of this game, there's nothing. It's just a bunch of it's just a bunch of there's no way you could ever win. And so what happened was the guy that scammed the win invested all of his money into making this computer game and sold it, probably quadrupled the winnings selling this scam. And what sucked was this was a scam and you had to pay $25 or whatever for it. You had to order it out of a magazine, but it wasn't even the end of the puzzle. Like he used the money from the sale of this to create a second game, which also did nothing. And you had to solve both of them in order to win. Like it was, I don't know, unscrupulous people.
I mean, you look at other stories, and I brought down some examples here for you. You ever heard of this one? It's called The World's Greatest Treasure Hunt.
Yeah, I got a copy of it. That's the one with the big golden eagle or something?
Big golden eagle. Okay. So want to talk about scams. This guy created this thing, basically said that he was walking home one day with the golden eagle in his backpack and he was robbed, and basically tried to file a claim for it. His insurance claim. So I mean, talking about scams, here's a big one right here. This is a really big. So nobody ever solved this thing because he basically tried to get an insurance claim on this golden eagle that was never actually really stolen. So that's a big one.
I mean even what's his face, David Blaine's book, that ultimately ended up where people were thinking it was a scam too. I mean, buried treasure hidden in Rick Rubin's backyard, that just happened to be found by somebody, and I'm not real sure, but just happened to be found by somebody who was kind of connected to David Blaine. Like, come on.
Well, then you got the next one, Conundrum, the golden eggs. This thing came out not long after Masquerade. You heard of this one?
All
right. So this is a very English one. Okay. Came out not long. Very similar to Masquerade. Artwork is very, very similar. Basically, it was by Cadbury's Golden Eggs. So artwork was very similar. Words and images. Very similar thing, but same as like with Masquerade, these people went crazy. They were digging up people's lawns. They were digging up like national trust sites, thinking, okay, there's this golden egg at this location. I'm digging it up. They went crazy. They actually called the hunt off because people just like were digging in the worst possible locations. So again, you talk about like something that wasn't well planned out. This is another one. It was great. The artwork is amazing. The golden egg was done by like a professional. Like these were like really good artwork. It was really good prize. In the end, it just turned out to be nothing. I'm going to do a podcast about it soon. But Lisa Finch, who did Letters of Saint Germain, she actually spent, because she's from England, she actually spent a little bit of time searching for some of these.
Yeah,
and
she wrote that in the comments.
Yeah. And it's just amazing. So exactly. People were trashing Roman ruins. Like it was crazy. So you got that one. We talked about Masquerade, of course. Okay. We talked about Fandango. So some of the other ones that I don't know if you've ever heard about. Quest. Search for the golden. I think it's search for the
dragon tooth.
Yes.
I thought that was found. I thought that one was solved.
It was never found. It was never solved.
Well, it wasn't found. Okay. You're right. It wasn't found, but it was kind of solved.
Kind of solved, but again, it was one of those ones where the author just never really confirmed anything.
Gotcha.
So, and then he wrote the second one, Unicornus. Same sort of thing. You know, never really solved or never really officially solved. You know,
See, I actually
wanna talk
got
about a little-
those. I got those because like Chris Preacher told me they were like the perfect. They were perfect. The treasure hunts and the puzzles were perfect. That I should study them.
It's a great. The thing about this one is it's a great story. It really is. The artwork in there, again, the story itself. You know, when you look at treasure hunts like these days, the story, you know, sometimes can be, you know, hit or miss. But this was a really great story. The artwork was really good. So it was, even if you didn't know there was a treasure hunt, you could read this and just be like, okay, this is a great story. You know, I want to talk about, and Nick, I know this is a big one between me and Nick. This is a personal story, but I want to share something with you.
Well, I know
this
where
is
this
a really
one's
big
going.
This one here is called The Treasure of the Everglades. Okay, by a guy named Bob Bramlett. Okay, do you have this one?
Yeah.
So this is from a couple of years ago. This is just, yep, exactly. This was just before me and Nick solved Lost Skull. Okay, so it's a great story. You buy it off of thing. So basically, you go through the story. It tells you some basic information. Not a great story, but it points to an exact location in the Everglades. Okay, so between me and Nick is in Florida, and I'm up here in New Jersey. We spent maybe about 3 or 4 months on this thing, trying to determine exact location. We went through Google Earth, everything. We had an exact location down to a pinpoint, basically. So I'm here in New Jersey. This one day, Nick goes, okay, so I have to travel on this road to get to, because he's a firefighter. He's like, I have to travel on this road. I can go on this other road to get to where I need to go. And I'm going to go there. I'm going to be there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm going to look for this location. I think it's right at this point. And I was like, okay. So I was on the phone with him. Okay. 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm dropping, by the time he gets there, I'm dropping my kids off at school. I'm on the phone to him. He's like, I'm at this location. I've turned over every rock at this location. And I just don't know where this thing could be. And we're like, this has to be the right location. All right. He's like, well, just hang on. There's this car pulling up. It's like, okay. And he tells me, oh, this guy just got out of this car. He has a shovel. It's like, okay. He goes, this guy walks with this shovel. He walks right up to this exact rock with the shovel, pulls off the rock, pulls out the treasure, hops back into his car. Nick's there watching this whole time, hops back into his car, drives off. About 10 minutes later, the guy's social media goes off saying, oh, this thing's being found, blah, blah, blah. And like, Nick's like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, so Nick, one of the things is that Nick had contacted the author saying, we know it's in this location. We're going to search in this location. And the author, it turns out when we contacted him, turns out the guy that found this treasure was the author's best friend. So this guy put this thing on Amazon, sold it as an actual treasure hunt. But what it was he wanted to just create something for his friend's son. Okay. His friend was the one that went with the shovel, turned off the rock, his son was in the truck already, didn't get out to dig up the treasure himself, was in the truck and drove off with it. Like, Nick was there at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He was telling me, he's like, it's dark here right now. I can hear the barking of the alligators right now. He's like, I'm like searching around here and I can't find anything. Like, he was in the middle of the Everglades looking this thing up, and then this guy drives up in the truck. He was there right then, and this guy picks up. So you talk about ethics. Nick then contacts the guy, and he's like, what the hell? It's like, I was there. I saw what happened. And this guy's like, oh, no, he knew. He solved it. He got the treasure and everything. It's like, Nick's like, he knew exactly where he needed to go, So he just wanted to create this thing. He was selling this. So eventually, Nick, who's amazing, Nick reaches out to Amazon. He has this thing stop being sold on Amazon, gives it negative reviews just because he's like, this is not a real thing, So, this guy tried to create another one not long afterwards that ultimately failed as well. But Nick's like, you can't do these sorts of things. People honestly took what you said in this book is that there was a real treasure and we could look for it, but you're ultimately saying that you really created this for your friend. You know, you can't sell that to the public saying that it's a real thing if you were giving the answer to somebody else.
Yeah. It seems like with treasure hunts, you got like a 50-50 shot of them just being total scams. I mean, I don't want to, like, I don't know which part of the, like, that's not the first time Nick's been scammed out of a prize. I mean, there's, maybe we'll mix that controversy in so people later on, so people don't tie the two together, because I don't want to throw Nick under the bus and I don't want people to know exactly what treasure hunt I'm talking about. But like, okay, so let's do, so there's really no way to avoid these. There's really no way to know.
No. There's no way to know what's good and what's bad.
So when you go into a treasure hunt, you're going in expecting, like, you might not, I guess as long as you go in expecting you might not win no matter what, it's a little better.
Yeah.
You know? But I don't know.
So let's take the Incredible Hunt, okay? I went before it was launched, okay, when it was announced, I started posting it on a lot of my socials for the podcast because it looked exciting. You know, I bought the box for myself. I thought, this is exciting. You know, it looks like it's going to be great. I actually posted it on a Facebook group I'm a part of, which is all about puzzles and stuff like that. So one of the controversies I went on that is that I had a lot of people giving backlash saying, oh, it's another treasure hunt. It's a pay to play. You know, you have to pay to be part of it. And I was like, well, you guys buy like puzzle subscription boxes, Hunter Killer, whatever, you know, and there's no prize at the end. You solve this puzzle, but you don't get anything except the satisfaction of knowing that you solved it. You know, this ultimately has possibly a satisfaction of knowing that you won 10,000, you know, if you go and dig it up. And so I had these conversations with these people saying, you know, what this is about. They're like, oh, well, this is not, it's a scam, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. Then when it was launched, you know, I was involved and with Ashley, and I looked for a little while, and then pretty quickly 2 were solved, okay? And they were paid out. So that sort of voided the whole, like, you know, this is a scam, you know, they're not gonna get paid out, blah, blah, blah. You know, so everybody paid for boxes or got boxes or got the cards, you know, and whatnot. Then later on, he moved on to the next phase. The Incredible Hunt moved on to the next phase, which is where they're doing this like weekly thing. And this is where I'm really going to get Ashley to talk about this part, is like, that's when he moved into the next part. And there were some things that happened here. Not that we're not going to go into too much detail, I know, but that's kind of where there was some other problems.
Well, okay, I'm not muted. I thought I was muted, but that's actually why I was late, because when he started the second phase with the minis, I had actually like stopped playing for a little while for whatever reasons that I won't get into, but ultimately, like, I started playing again. And I think with any new hunt, like any new creator, like you have this, like, I know, George, you've talked about this, like there's a, like, how do you draw that line between creator and hunter? Because our roles like really merge at some point. Like, how many treasure hunts? There's definitely treasure hunts that are created by people we're not familiar with, but the community is so tight knit. Everybody knows each other. So, you know, what we all expect is that there are gonna be glitches. There's gonna be hiccups along the way, especially when you're new to the whole game, and I think what he's doing is something kind of different than what I've seen like most people doing. And so we're going to give him grace for that, but there's going to be hiccups. You just have to be transparent about it. You just have to be upfront about it, because like you said, it's a pay to play, so people are paying to participate. Nobody's expecting perfection. Just be upfront and honest about what is happening currently, and then I think most people accept that. Like with the most recent most recent mini hunt, there's been just a few glitches, but it was a new format, and he's very upfront about it. And I think most people accepted that and were willing to work with it and weren't upset about it. So, you know, there's always going to be people that are going to complain. I think that's always going to be a problem. Like whenever you have a hunt that's worth so much money, right? And I kind of feel like a $10,000 prize is a lot of money. It kind of causes people to really forget themselves, and, you know, rules go out the door, and, you know, who's right or wrong goes out the door, and you're just trying to like beat everybody, and it kind of can get out of hand, you know, especially like when you have these big hunts with these big prizes. You see these, and I know Nick Sparrow had an opinion about this, and he has a good opinion about this. You see these mega teams being formed, these big teams, because everybody's so focused on winning that it's just about that. And not that that's wrong. Mega teams aren't bad. It just kind of makes everything a little bit more complicated, right?
Yeah.
So you have this new kind of factor where you have like 9-10 people in a team who are just spitting out like solve after solve, and then you have these other people who are just coming in who are, you know, by themselves, and they're trying to catch up, and they want to play, but you know, they're buying in late, and then they see all these people, these same people, just bam bam bam, win, and it gets kind of discouraging. So I mean, I think that's a new kind of like thing that we're seeing with these big prize hunts, is that there's a new dynamic, right? Like who's involved, and who's on a team with each other, and how are they winning. So
when you get into when you get into mega teams, you introduce whole new ethical questions, because you're not questioning the ethics of the hunt. You're questioning the ethics of the people that you're working with. Like, how trustworthy are these people? How is everything going to be handled? Somebody in this just to get famous? Is somebody in this just for whatever? You know, that's a whole different.
It comes down to like, how do you break everything down? Like, especially with the big money. Like, I've worked with Ashley for over a year now on treasure hunting, and we've worked on a lot of little ones, like $500 prize ones. We did one that was called Vault of Treasure. The guy barely had launched it. Ashley, me, Lisa, Nick, we all worked on this thing. Adam, there was the 5 of us. We solved it. It was worth $500. We broke it up over the 5 of us. You know, so we all ended up with like $100 almost. And like, but it was just the fact that we won it together. I work with Ashley on Saint Germain, of course. That's how I first got in working with Ashley, was with her and Brody on Saint Germain. That treasure hunt ended up costing me money. Not actually, I didn't win anything. It costed me money because we all, as winners, we all put together and we had replicas of the actual prize, which is like this horn thing made with like crystals. We actually went back to the artist and we said, hey, can you make 5 more of these and we'll pay you for them? And she made 5 of them and we paid her to make 5 more for them. So we each had one of these like horns that I have again in the code bar. So it cost me money. Like, I didn't win anything off of that. I paid money to have this horn made. But these big treasure hunts that are worth 10,000, 20,000, the Utah ones that are going on right now, 20,000, you know, the Great America that originally was like, what was it, 10,000 a chapter, and now it's $1,000 a city. But these guys, I mean, I like to put Great America, Great US and Incredible Hunt together. They're trying to create a business around treasure hunting because, like, even his original announcement there was still going to be New York Hunt. All of a sudden, he changed it to DC now. It's not New York anymore. Then they just did Austin, you know. So he's doing these little hunts that are worth $1,000. They're great. But the problem I have with his hunts, and there's nothing that I think is wrong with them, but the problem I have is that by the time that he sends out the email, because it's all via email, by the time that he sends out the email, I'm following on the Facebook groups because I'm a admin of the Facebook group. By the time that he sends out the email, it's solved and somebody's out there already collecting it in the city. Like,
well, the
I
Great
barely
American
had a
Treasure
chance to
Hunt,
look at the-
they've got a different.
It's not a treasure hunt.
It's not a treasure hunt. It's a publicity.
No.
It's at this point, it's publicity. Like even like they're good guys, and the hunt's fun. And if you enjoy the hunt, it seems ethical. They're right up front about what they're doing, but they're trying to get a TV show.
It's not a treasure hunt. You're solving 5 puzzles, and you're the first to get there.
Yeah,
and they keep mentioning that, like, there's people over and over that are like, oh, this person just got there and pulled in at the same time as this person, you know, and they did this on the Incredible Hunt too.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that, like, even with the email that you get when you register for the Great US Treasure Hunt, they send you information back that says, help us get a TV show. Am I not wrong on that? So it kind of feels like that's like their ultimate goal. But and like, as far as like the teams go and what we were talking about earlier, you know, you kind of have to lay some of the responsibility and the ethical behavior with the hunters as well. Like, I didn't team up with Lisa until after we had Brody, I, and Travis had finished working the last Saint Germain hunt that was the Rhapsody and Grain hunt, because like I kind of have this thing, like, if I'm on a team with you, like, I'm not going to work your hunt, right? So like, now that me and Lisa are on a team together for, like, we did the Utah hunt and the vaults of treasures with Rob, like, I'm not going to work any more of Lisa's hunts. I'm very sad about that because I love Lisa's hunts, but it's just something that I personally choose to do because I feel like on some level, working with this person on other things, I kind of have an insight as to how maybe they think a little bit or how they process information. So then going forward, is that really fair of me to compete against other people who don't have that same information against a treasure hunt that they create, right? So
exactly. And I did that with Lisa as well. I've helped Lisa, like, launch with other. She did the 48 one on my podcast. But I've helped Lisa launch ones, but I don't compete in anything that Lisa does anymore. Rhapsody in Grey, anything like that. Robert Brewer, we talked. Me and Nick actually spoke with the guy, and we said after we won Lost Skull, we said, even if you do another one, we will help you. We'll beta test it. We'll do whatever, but we won't actually compete because now we know you. Now you're a friend. You know, we don't want that. And that's part of what I've done with the podcast is I try to stay neutral. I'll do interviews with creators, and coming out very soon, I do have an interview with the creator of The Incredible Hunt. It's going to be coming out in about 2 weeks. I stay neutral on these things, and that's what I want the podcast to be about, is to be a neutral place where people can come and they can listen and know that I'm not taking a side this way or that way. I don't take a side on the Fenn. I have my own opinions, but I don't take a side of the Fenn. I don't take a side of, like, I have my own idea of where I think things are for the Secret. Like, I have my own theory of where I think the New York cask is. Any of the other casks, I have no idea. But the New York one, I think is in North New York, based on some things that I did on my research, especially with the Isle of B. I think it actually has to do with the University of Puerto Rico that has a site up in North New York. I'll share it with you later, George. But
Okay.
but I don't take a side. I'm not. That's what I want the podcast to be about. Is because I don't want people to think that I'm biased on one side, because then you're only getting that one side of the listeners. I want to tell the story of the hunt, or the treasure, or the puzzle, or the cipher. That's what I try to fit. What I try to focus on.
And I know, George, that you've been offered like money, like, or reimbursements and things to promote certain puzzles. And like, I really commend you, because I know for a fact that you never take that. That
No.
if someone wants to offer you, money per referral, that you just tell them, give it to charity, because you're not going to promote something that you're also making money on, because that kind of blurs that line, right? It's hard.
So that brings up a good point, because like in all of these hunts, aside from Masquerade, if we can take Masquerade, because it was a first, it was an anomaly, and put it off into another category, right? You can take all of these hunts we're talking about and categorize them into two different types of hunts. You've got hunts by people like Lisa Finch, where I disagree with the two of you. If there were ever any controversy in any of Lisa's hunts, I think it would be shut down pretty quickly. I think Lisa has the reputation of honesty. She has the reputation of being an ethical treasure hunter. And I think the controversy would be shut down. You can categorize these hunts into two different ways: not-for-profit hunts and people who want to build a business. And the moral and ethical questions are all on the business side. They're all with people who want to create these big things, who want to make the creators famous, or who want to create this, they want to ultimately make money. And that's the kind of stuff I stay away from.
Well, and the thing with like you're right, exactly. Like the thing with like Lisa, and because you're right, like she's morally sound completely and 100%. She never would give hints even if we would ask for them. But it's more, for me, it's more about the perception. Like, I don't want to win one of her hunts and then people think that I got special treatment because I was also on a team with her for a different hunt. So it's mainly for like me personally and like how it's perceived, but not to question whether or not it would be, not above board. I did work the Rhapsody and Gray hunt, and then me and her we teamed up with Rob and Nick formally after that. So I've chosen personally that I'm not going to work on any future hunts that she creates. Not because she would ever give me hints. She would never do that. But it's just more about like, I wouldn't want someone else to think that I had an upper hand. So like, not to judge the creators.
It's the way you work.
It's the way I work, and it's my choice. So not to say that, if somebody wants to work, Xavier Mark, but they're also on a team with Sean for a different hunt, like that's up to them and that's how they do it. Not to say that's right, wrong, or whatever. It's just a personal choice that I mean,
you just brought up a great point. Like, let's talk about that with Xavier Marks and Incredible Hunt. Like, I have no problem with you being a creator working on different hunts. I don't have a problem with that. Like, this is your community. This is what you enjoy doing. You enjoy writing puzzles. You enjoy doing puzzles. Okay. The only problem I have with the Sean, and I know you've had him on the show before, but the only problem I have with him is that he goes by that name, Xavier Marks, with the Incredible Hunt. Like, go by Sean. That's who you are. You're Sean. Like Lisa, if she was competing in Xavier Marks, like we've looked at it before as a team, but if she's competing in Xavier Marks, she's going to send in information as Lisa. She's not going to send in something as Saint Germain. I will compete with the name Code Bar, but I don't produce my own puzzles
Treasure
or
hunts,
anything
right.
like that. So I don't have a stake in it that way. But I don't say that that's wrong, because I know he's not getting any information just because he's Xavier Marks and has his own treasure hunt. But I think the perception of it can look that way almost.
And I kind of look at it a little bit different, because I kind of look at it as like, he's still in that separate category where, you have the pay to play and the people that create hunts for the community that are technically free, right? So there's no profit being made. But Xavier Marks, being that it's still technically a business, or however you want to put it, he's chosen that as a way to drive up his social media presence, which I kind of don't see a problem with, because he's also doing like creating some sort of business and trying to do that. So I see why he chose to participate in other hunts by that name. And I don't really think of it as like right or wrong in that aspect. I think that it's kind of a good marketing tactic personally, but I also see your point, Rob, in that, it's about perception, but I do kind of also see why he chose to do it that way. And I don't personally like see a real problem with that, because I think most people realize that, his book is his hunt is pay to play. So he's trying to get it out there like anyone would do if they had a business or were trying to make a business. I think like the issue, and not that it's an issue, but like we come upon this kind of dilemma as to like the business aspect of it versus the community aspect of it, because I kind of think that gets really that's where like issues can arise, right? So where you have this community that's very intertwined, right? Everybody knows everybody for the most part, and there's not really like, if I came out with a hunt tomorrow, like there would be like so many people that I'm friends with that I know that would they participate or would they wouldn't? It's a very tricky thing. But
see, it's super black and white to me. That issue is really black and white to me. I feel like if there is a hunt that has any sort of prize, if it's not just, your pride, right? Because some hunts are just about pride and the joy of winning. If there is a prize at the end, and if you are in any way associated with the creators of that hunt, you're out. You cannot win the prize.
And I agree.
You solve
with
the puzzle,
100%.
but you can't win the prize.
Right. I absolutely agree. I'm just saying like that, like if I were to create a hunt tomorrow, we know so many people and we're so intertwined with all those people, it's kind of like everybody knows everybody kind of situation. I think it kind of goes one step further when you are on a team with a person, you work with a person, because that's a little bit different.
Yeah, you know how they think.
I'm just reading the comments.
Like, actually, your example is a great example. I mean, if you were to come out with a hunt tomorrow, you're known within the community. I mean, and even like if I was to say for myself, okay, either me or you come out with a hunt tomorrow, are you still going to be competing in other people's hunts? I mean, that's the thing. Where is that boundary? And depending on what sort of hunt we do, is it just a hunt for like you're the first person to solve it, or is it a hunt for $1,000 prize? That's what it also comes down to, is like the difference in what type of a hunt it is. Like you look at, so let's go again with the three major examples. You have Fenn, which was millions of dollars. You have The Secret, which ultimately possibly you could get some fame, because if you actually dig it up, I mean, I don't know anybody that's going to be able to say, oh, I know where it is and get fame. They have to actually dig it up. But if you dig it up, I'm sure EU will knock on your door saying, tell me at least your story, you know, you're going to get some sort of fame, even if it's just within the community itself. But then you also have all these other treasure hunts that, like, is there any fame, prize, you know, glory, anything from those? You know, I mean, what is it involving with the treasure hunt? Is it the $10,000 of the incredible hunt for solving one of the cards? Is it $1,000 from the US treasure hunt for being the first to get the email and solve the 5 puzzles and be in that location at the right time? You know, that one's a race. That one's not a treasure hunt. That's a race. You know, it's really
and George, yeah, you're right. Like in George, like even when you decide, like you've decided, like you're not. When you decided that you were going to be about the podcast and about the hunt and not be like, I don't want to speak for you and say that you weren't actively searching for one, but you know, you kind of took a different like approach to it, right? Am I wrong in that? Like where you were like, you know, I'm about the community, like I'm about talking about, talking about the information. And like, because of your relationships with the people involved, that you took a different side to things. And it was about the perception, right? It was about ultimately, how would people view it if tomorrow you went and dug one up?
Yeah. This hunt would die. This hunt would die in a heartbeat if I dug up a cast. It would be dead. That's done.
But that was also your choice, right? Like that was also something that you personally decided to do because of what you believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was a.
You got to look at the other perception though. That there's the other side of people that are looking at it that like look at it and go, well, why should I? And I don't mean to offend you at all, George, but they'll be like, well, why should I listen to George when he hasn't dug one up? You know, there is that description as well of people saying, well, he is not holding one of these things in his hand, you know. So, and I get that myself. Like I've done little ones, but I'm not one of these people that have ever found $1,000 for the US treasure hunt or sold one of these $10,000 for the incredible hunt. I mean, I've tried. Don't get me wrong. I've been stuck just as much as Ashley is the one that's been like solving these things like crazy. Stop. Like, if you want to talk about somebody that's a superstar, this is this person right here. You know, Ashley is amazing. But you know, at the same time, I'm like, you know, why should they listen? And you're probably the same way. Why should people listen to me? And it's not about the fact that like you are one that found it or have one in your hand. It's that you know the lore behind it, you know the story behind it, and that makes just as much of a difference as actually if you had actually found one.
Yeah. My thing when I started working on the when the podcast team as a whole decided on the treasure hunt, we all had different ideas of not the treasure hunt, I'm sorry, the podcast. We all had different ideas on what we wanted ultimately out of it. My idea was always to create tools for people, right? 12 treasures. I wanted to make a tool for all of the information for whatever. The podcast started out as a tool to get all of this information out there. And I think it ultimately became a tool to build a community. Anyway, when I decided to take myself out of the hunt, that's what I sort of tried to turn into. Like, I know people call me an expert or whatever, and people say like, you should listen to George, but I have never said that. Not once, because I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself a tool in both good and bad ways. I'm like, right now, I'm just here for the community. I'm here to like talk to people, listen, help out when I can, to create these community talks, because nobody else is going to do it. Right? People have had the opportunity. Nobody puts effort into building and maintaining a community. And that's my whole goal now. I don't care. Number one, I'm not able to dig up a cask, but number two, even if I was able, I wouldn't care to at this point. That's not what the hunt's about for me anymore.
Well, John says that he wouldn't care if he would have no issue if you dug up one, George. So you know that.
John who? Oh, John.
Caw.
Oh,
I don't know if I'm saying that right.
is that the same
But-
guy that said that? Because somebody said that they realized my background was their favorite, and I don't know what they're talking about.
No, that was somebody different.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
But yeah, like I think like as much as we've talked about the morality and treasure hunt makers, there's equal blame to be put on hunters. You know?
Right. So like if you so for example, like say you're working and like you finish a hunt, right? And you know that someone else actually did it first before you, but didn't correct that piece of information. You know, like I see just as much like conflict as far as like what hunters are doing to each other in this community than, you know, one side of what the creators are doing, whether it's a scam or whatever. Like you still have to be honest and true to yourself as a hunter and like do the right thing. Like it's not that difficult. Like if you know you didn't, you know, finish first, like say something and like let them know who did, especially if you know that someone else did, right? It's not that difficult, right? But when you like,
but that's where it comes down to. That's where it comes down to money. Like
it
about
absolutely
it.
does.
If it's a $10,000 like question, are you going to be the one that's going to say, "Oh no, they really did it first," and give up $10,000? You know, it's one of those things. Like people, it all depends on the level of the hunt. Like there are people out there that will be just about the money.
Ashley just got less attractive.
Way less. Sorry, guys. I'm just a placeholder.
Have you?
Apparently,
It's like one of those guys,
very
one of those
basil margaritas
fillers of
make
the
me empathy.
Academy Awards.
Exactly.
So Robert, there's something that I've noticed in the secret community, but I don't get out into other hunts as much. So I'm going to ask you if this is present in other hunts. In the secret community, there are people who are out there just to spread disinformation and chaos. Like you can tell who they are, you know, they make posts that are nothing but, you know, argumentative. They do nothing but complain and they do nothing but spread misinformation for whatever gain. I have no idea. Is that present in other hunts?
It is. I am not as much as I see in the secret. Like I was just reading up some of the even just today, some of the posts that I read today. Like there was one post where like somebody got like offended by her name being used.
Well, it was Karen.
Yeah, it was Karen. Like, okay, but they were making a joke not at that person.
Yeah.
Just of the name, but that person took offense to it. Like, I don't see that sort of thing. But for instance, like in some of the other, one of the things that I try to be a part of is like if there are some big Facebook groups, I'll try to be an admin if I can of some of them. Like I am an admin of the Great US Treasure Hunt. I am an admin of the Incredible Hunt. More so just to have that extra name on there, just to say, you know, an extra, you know, person that's there. But more so just so I could see what's going on in the differences. And yes, I mean, even down to say the US Treasure Hunt. Like I'm not talking about the latest ones, the latest version of it with the $1,000 in the different cities. I think that's been, I've not seen any controversy around that. Even down to like the winners that have been finding that. But let's talk about like last year where they did the big $10,000 one per chapter. The big one I remember was the Las Vegas one, where there was some controversy. I guess you'll put it that way, of like the difference between a bench and a seat. Like there was one team that went out and searched every seat in this certain park and didn't find this thing hidden. But there was somebody that went out and searched every bench in this park and found it under a picnic table with a bench attached to it. And that's where they found it, and they were the winner. So there was people that were complaining that, you know, the ambiguity of between the two of like, you know, what's the difference between a seat and a bench? You know, I searched every seat, but I didn't find it, but I didn't search every bench, you know?
Yeah.
And then this person that did search the bench. So there's the controversy of those sorts of things. That moved on, and there was enough that it did move on, that people were like, you know, okay, your point is taken, but let's move on. And I think that was great at that point. But those big money, I think that's where treasure hunting is, especially armchair treasure hunting, what we talk about. The problem is that if you put too much money into it, you're going to get the people that are just in it for the money. You put too little money into it, people aren't going to look into it. They're going, it's not worth my time, you know? So where is that middle ground of where people like, you know, okay, I'll put the time in, but I'm not going to, you know, we talk about like with Saint Germain, and I talked about Bosul. Didn't make any money off either of them, you know? So there was nothing to be won except the fact that we won. Me and Nick and Ashley and Lisa, when with Bosul, we won. That I have pictures up on my wall down in the code bar. I get like a canvas made of like all the different hunts that we won. Even if it was worth nothing and I paid money, I got a canvas made of that. A big one I want to talk about is like, especially because Jennifer Rao, she just won the LA version, LA chapter, I guess you'll call it, of the Great U.S. Treasure Hunt.
She's a rock star, man.
Yeah, she worked with me and Nick on a treasure hunt called it's in LA.
I remember that one.
And me and Nick worked on this forever. This thing was like a book, and all it was basically code, was like numbers. And for, I want to say almost close to like 6 to 7 months, me and Nick worked through these codes and we had help from other people. Don't get me wrong. I didn't do it all by myself, but we put it all together and we deciphered all this code to determine it was in Irvine State Park or Irvine Park in LA. And we then, between me and Nick, we contacted a couple of different people in LA to try and go out to the park to go looking for this park for us. Eventually, we reached out to Jennifer Rao and was like, okay, she went out like 5 times to this park for us. Like, I'd looked up this thing on Google Maps. I could still tell you which way to go in this park using Google Maps and using Google Street View, because I'd seen that thing so many times. So she went out to this park and she went to the exact location. We had the exact location planned, okay? She went to the location. The key, which was the prize, was not there, all right? So we went back to the author. We sent pictures. We sent all our decoding. We sent everything to the author. And we're there. Now, it turned out there'd been some major fires in that area over the past couple of years. And the firefighting techniques of the time, they dropped from helicopters and planes. So they just like bombarded the place with water. And this thing was just on the surface. So it was like washed away from all these fires. And we're like, it's there. So we contacted the author and we're like, we know it's there. We sent pictures. We sent everything we needed to send to say, this is the exact location. She was there. And she went there like 5 times. And it's like a local park to her. She'd had to drive there to this location each time. The author comes back to us and he writes to us and says, well, I've contacted a lawyer, and because she didn't actually find the key, I'm canceling the entire hunt.
Yeah, that one seems shady.
The prize. Like, he basically said, I'm voiding the prize. So we, like me, Nick, and Jennifer, we reached out onto the various different groups that we're a part of, and Jenny Kyle on Mysterious Writings and stuff like that. And we said, like, we solved this. We were the ones that won this. Like, we don't care about the prize money, okay? We just want the fact that we won it. You know, that's the thing. Me and Nick and Jennifer wanted to be the ones that we won this treasure hunt. So eventually, people contacted the author, and he came back to saying, "You guys won. You know, I'm going to award you the prize." Well, he split the prize up via Venmo. We all sent the money back to him. We didn't keep the money. We sent it back. You know, we're like, it wasn't about the money. And we said that all along. It was about the fact that we won, you know, and we're happy that we won and everything like that. But that's another example of like, people are like just trying to get away with what they can. You know, I mean, he did this thing, and this thing was hard as shit. Like, there was all code. It was like counting the alphabet backwards and forwards, like going back, you know, it was just crazy. But in the end, we were the ones that were considered the winners, because that's what we wanted. We were at the right location. It doesn't matter that the key wasn't there. The key wasn't there because it was out of our control, you know, but we had the right location, and so we were the winners.
Yeah, I think the only example I have of one of those is a Charles Beale hunt. Like, Charles Beale, he's got his own controversies, right? With his $1 million whatever treasure chest. But he released a hunt, I think it was called the Theodosia Burr, right? Where it was a map and a story.
Nick called him out on this one. Nick really called him out. He copied and pasted a lot of his shit.
It's just like Wikipedia.
It was from Wikipedia and from different websites. We called him out on one of the ones that was in like Vermont or something like that. I can't remember the exact one. We actually ended up finding the web page of where he'd copied and pasted. The author of the web page didn't know that he'd copied and pasted. And like, she contacted him saying, "You can't do this." Like, it just, the Theodosia one was the big one. It's like, everybody was looking for this thing in Florida or Hatteras or whatever. And it turns out it was like in South Carolina. It was like way inland.
Yeah, it was somewhere. It was like on some property that his daughter owned or something. Yeah. So the Theodosia Burr one, me and, oddly enough, Bradley ended up helping me with. It was the first time I had ever met Bradley. We followed all the clues, which led us to a park called Whalebone Park in Roanoke, right outside of Roanoke, right? Where 90% of the puzzle was written on a damn sign in front of a children's playground that was like a huge boat called the SS Theodosia Burr. And we spent like 8 hours in that park, metal detecting that park. Like, does he even still, like, I can't imagine he has a reputation left, because people have said like people win hunts and they get gems and they're just like dyed quartz. They're not even real gems.
That was Nick again. He
didn't want
call him out on that. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, he keeps trying to bring out more. And I don't know. Again, I don't think that he's had a bad enough like response back to it. Like, we called him, me and Nick were the ones that like called him out on a lot of stuff. And we did try to, that's my dog sleeping on the couch. We did try to call him out on it, but he just keeps coming back out with more. I mean, and this goes back to this LA one, is that we called out this guy saying, "You won't be able to do anything more again if this is the way that you're trying to end this thing." And he basically came back after that saying, "Okay, you guys won." And we didn't, again, we all gave the money back. It wasn't the prize. It was that we wanted to be an ending.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to end with him saying, "Oh, my lawyer said that you didn't find the key, so you didn't win."
That's crazy.
No.
I just remember reading, I remember seeing his website and being like, this is scammy as shit. The This Is LA one. I think I sent him an email. I was like, "Oh, it's in LA."
Well, technically it wasn't, because it was in Irvine.
And honestly,
Even
like,
lied about that.
it's kind of been like, I know like some things have happened like recently with the Incredible Hunt, but as far as like how he's approaching this and the way he's going about it is definitely different than anything like I've ever seen. As far as like the instant, there's no like question, right? Like if you pass a certain level or you accomplish a certain task with his hunt, like it's instantly validated, if that's the right word. So, you know, it's different in that aspect where this, you don't have to send in an email like, is this correct spot? Wait for an email back. You know, you enter like certain things and then if you get an instant response, is this correct? Is it not correct? That's kind of refreshing. And the fact that that's not something I'm used to as far as like armchair treasure hunts is concerned. And as far as what you said, Rob, about like me being like this amazing solver and the whole thing with that, like I have like, there's a group of people that have really, they're really the real like rock stars in that, which is like Amanda and Julie, Alyssa, Dustin for a while, Deidre for a while, and Retro and Dan. They've all been like really like very like into this and very steadfast and very exceptional as far as like how they've approached this. So, you know, I can't really take that credit, but it's, I feel like this is different in a lot of ways, but like also like we're trying to like reach into the same group of people that kind of all full with these hunts. So like it's kind of a hard thing where like this new person comes along, they have this new way of doing things, interjecting into this group of people that were already there and already kind of established, and then how we take it in and how we perceive it. And, you know, like, are there going to be glitches? Yeah. Are we accepting of those? Mostly, as long as everybody's transparent about it and as long as everybody's honest and upfront. And, you know, because nobody, I don't think anyone expects anything to be perfect first off, right off the shelf. Nobody, if you expect that, then you need to just get out of this game, because that's not, we're all still human and that's just how it is, right? So we don't expect perfection, right? What we do expect is that everyone's upfront and honest about the imperfections, right?
Yeah.
Or if there are any. That's just a simple thing that most people want out of, you know, something like this, especially when they pay money to be a part of it.
I think I'd give the Incredible Hunt the benefit of the doubt in this situation, because Nick's new to this. He's using a new format that's untested. It's all computer, it's all programming, right? And there's no way he can work out all the bugs. He got hit with a controversy pretty quick and it was pretty loud and he reacted badly, but it sounds, I don't know, but it sounds like he fixed it. Like he made everything right. So like an inexperienced person that gets hit with some controversy like that, they're like, oh shit, this thing I've worked on for 2 years is all of a sudden going to be over just because of this little mistake. They're going to react a little bit badly. Then once they calm down, as long as they fix it, they learn that lesson, right? The community is going to stand behind me if there's a glitch, as long as I fix it. So I'd give him the benefit of the doubt.
And as long as you just say, look, there was a glitch, right? Like this happened, like I'm trying to fix it, and everybody's upfront and honest about it. Like that goes a long way, a long way. I think with like most people are very reasonable, you know, within our community, because like we know that we've been around with each other. We've worked with each other on different things for like a really long time. There's been some people that have been here way longer than me. And, you know, we've all kind of built relationships and partnerships, and it's all very intertwined, but like we all still know that we're human, right? And we all still know that like nobody's perfect. So, you know, just be like, hey, this is what happened. You don't try to hide it, you don't try to cover it up. And I think most people are reasonable and responsive to that.
So I think based on this conversation, the things to look for when looking for hunts or hunters is motivation. Just spend some time whenever anybody new comes in or whenever a new hunt is put out. Just spend some time learning about that person or that thing. Figure out what the motivation behind it is. Because if you learn the motivation, you'll learn everything you need to know.
Exactly. I mean, and to bring it all full circle. I mean, I've been working with Ashley since Saint Germain. I mean, this is the first time we've actually chatted together, like on a video, like, but we've messaged like nonstop
I know, right?
like for a couple of years now. But and same with you, George. I mean, we talked once before. I showed you around the code bar and everything like that on video chat. Same with my friend with Nick. You know, we'd videoed, we'd talked, and then it wasn't until Lost Skull that we met. But the difference is that we came together to work, like just to solve. You know, it wasn't. We didn't. None of our solves were like. I mean, you know the difference. Again, come full circle with the secret. You know the crazy ones are the ones that come up, and they're like, I watched, and we talked about this before. I watched EU last night, and it was about the secret, and
that show. By the way, your chat just showed up to everybody.
Oh, really?
I'll close it out for you.
He was just like texting me, and he was showing me like on his message. He was like, "Are you getting tipsy?" And I was like, "Uh-huh."
I love the fact that probably because of the background of Ashley's house, we now have Josh Gates on the podcast.
Wait, what?
Isn't that Josh Gates in the background?
Oh, it is. So,
Josh
like,
Gates is on the podcast.
No, this is funny.
First
so
time.
When we leave the house and we like go and the dogs are here, I put that on for them every time. Because and not because it's
voice.
Not like interesting, but because like it never stops playing. And so it's continuous like noise because one of our dogs is like has PTSD. He's like an explosives detection dog. So like the more he's exposed to noise, like the better he is, if that makes sense. Because when it's quiet, he gets very like into his like whatever. Like I don't know what they did to him. He came from like Homeland Security, but so we keep the continuous noise while we're gone. So like no matter how long we're gone, it never stops playing. And we came from, my daughter moved into college this weekend. So we moved her up yesterday, and then, you know, of course she forgot stuff. So we had to go back today. And like we had put that on before we left. And so we came home and we never changed the channel.
Well, thank you for getting Josh Gates on our podcast. That's the first. We're running long, so if you guys want to bail, we can. If you want to keep chatting about stuff, we can do that too. It's up to you. Whenever we run long, it's guest choice.
Somebody had asked, what are my thoughts on The Secret? And I don't know if they mean like New Orleans. I'm assuming they mean New Orleans because I don't really call
they want to know your general, perception. Do you like the book? Is it a pretty book?
So I have so many thoughts on this. As far like I really kind of feel like I can only comment on New Orleans because that's the one I work the most, and maybe like Charleston like a little bit, but not really. But like I'm really open as far as New Orleans is concerned, and a lot of people are very like steadfast on their theories and where they think it is, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm kind of like in this mode where I'm going to rule out all these places, and kind of like Brody's my partner as far as like secret stuff. We just went to New Orleans this past weekend to look at a spot, and I love him because he's so determined, and we kind of like didn't find anything, so then we were like, let's go do an escape room.
We're 3 out of 3 on escape room.
And we killed the escape room, by the way.
Oh,
but
there's a bunch in St. Augustine. We should do one.
Definitely.
I don't know how long.
It kind of like you spend the day trying to find a cask, and you're like destroyed because you don't find anything. Like when we left where we were at, like I had dirt embedded under my nails because neither one of us brought a shovel, and we only had a probe, and we were he hit something. He was like, oh. And I was like, oh. And so we were like, screw it. And then we just kind of like started digging with our hands. And, it was very rudimentary. And then we definitely covered up what we did. But Yeah, we didn't find anything. We were dirty.
The building that they were digging next to still doesn't have power, but we don't know what happened.
We covered in what we dug with our fingernails.
We covered up the
Even-
exposed main wire. all 4 pieces of it.
It was one of those situations. But then we ended up at, escape room, and it was fun. And, that's what I love about this, because, like most of us never find anything, right? Like we go to we get together, we go look, and then we never find anything. Some people have, but most of us haven't. And it's, the relationships you build and the friends that you make, right? Ultimately. Yeah. And that's really what makes it all worth it. So,
the secret is so unlikely to be solved that I started looking for other shit. It's
right. We laugh because, before we teamed up with Lisa, me and Rob and Brody and Nick figured we worked together for Saint Germain Hunt and the Letters of Saint Germain, and we actually ultimately won that. It was funny because the horn that was the prize. So Jeremy actually works with Brody's wife they work at the same hospital. So I had all the horns shipped to me, and I said, here's Brody's horn, bring it to him. And he went and gave it to Lisa, and Lisa, Kim, and Kim was like, what is this? This is a freaking horn. Like, what is this? And she's like, oh, this is going in his music room. And it's funny because like, they kind of like Brody's wife and him kind of relate, like they just tag along. Yeah. But it's funny because
I got the same thing.
I've like climbed places. I've paid off homeless people to watch our backs while we dug in some shady ass spots in New Orleans.
He's committed.
I mean, I might not actively hunt, but if you tell me where to go and where to dig, I'm there for you.
I know.
We went to a rooftop bar in Charleston with Jeremy and Ashley, and me and Ashley and Rachel are like sitting in a corner just talking about stuff, and Jeremy is educating the entire bar on what the secret is and how they should listen to the podcast.
I'm pretty sure he's in that guy's wedding still, right? Like you're still in that guy's wedding, right?
Well, I talk about it all the time with my wife, and my wife's always like, well, no, and she's not in anything at all. She doesn't treasure hunt or anything like that. Every time I'll bring it up, she'll be like, oh, the community. And she'll be like, always like with the community, like making fun of that. Like, it's like weird to be part of this. I mean, but you watch anything on TV, there's a community about anything. These are people like I talk to with you guys and everything like that. And I'll talk about something, and she'll be, the first thing I'll say is like, oh, I was looking at this treasure thing. She goes, well, what does Nick think? Because me and Nick were like back and forth and like text and everything like that. And now I'm talking with Adam, my friend in England. She's like, well, what does Adam think? Or what does Ashley think? She's like, she'll always say that to me because like she knows that I talk about these people all the time that I'm messaging on Facebook or anything like that, because that's who I work with. My job, I mindlessly sit answering phones all day, which means I can message or research and everything like that based on my job. And so that's what I do all day. And she knows that, and she kind of tries to make fun of it, but like that's where I am. This is the community that I'm part of. It's like the secret community, the Fenn community, the treasure hunt community, the podcast community. Like we're all together in trying to work this stuff out. If somebody comes to me, and I had a guy from Australia contacted me about a soul for what was it? Whistle Pig. The book Whistle Pig. He said he thought it was in Mullica Hill here in New Jersey, which is about an hour from me. So on my day off, I went down to Mullica Hill. I took pictures. I searched everywhere he thought this place was. It wasn't there. And I messaged him back. I was like, well, it's not there. Well, what's your next theory? If somebody comes back to me, and you're the same thing with The Secret, if somebody comes to you, you will go do that. You'll search, you'll probe, you'll dig. I know, Ashley, you'll probably do that for New Orleans. Nick's come.
I had some experience
with that. Yeah, it's what we do because we are a community. We work together.
Well, and I think that's what you get out of these, right? That's why the prizes don't matter. I know that's why people like me still do it. Like, I can't get anything. People ask that a lot. Like, why do you still do it? Because back in high school, I had friends that I'd go to the end of the earth for. You know, I had the closest, it was the tightest group of friends. Then high school was over. You stop interacting with them. They all drifted apart. You become an adult. You have like a couple of acquaintances. You have a couple of friends that you hang out with on the weekends. But you join a community like this and you get that tight friendship back. You get people like Ashley who are willing to drive to Florida to come and see a painting and just hang out with you. Or people like Nick and Caroline who are flying down from New Jersey for Thanksgiving. You know, you get people that are passionate about getting together, passionate about just hanging out and doing nothing. Like someone asked me recently, if they flew me to New Orleans, what would be the first place I would want to dig? And I was like, I wouldn't have time because I'd be with Brody and Ashley getting trashed somewhere down on Bourbon Street. Like,
Yeah,
you put me in New Orleans, the last thing I'm going to want to do is dig a hole. That's the prize to me in treasure hunting in general, not just the secret. These communities that pop up, like, what's more important than the prize is the friends. It sounds trite, but it's true.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've worked with Nick, and I'll say this every day of the week. I've worked with Nick for over 4 years on treasure hunts, and it's weird if we don't text more than 2 or 3 times a week. Like, even if it's just to say, hey, how you doing? What are you working on? You know, on my day off, I'll say, oh, well, I'm working on this today. You know, what are you doing today? You know, we'll talk. What's your opinion of this? You know, I'll message Ashley all the time, like, hey, what's your opinion of this? You know, we've talked about, and even then, I've brought in other treasure hunts like Guardians of Legends and On the Trail of the Golden Owl and Intende. You know, I've said, hey, Ashley, have you heard of these? And she's like, okay, now I'll go buy those. You know, and we've talked about those.
I did.
You know, yeah, you went and bought the board game, the Guardians of Legend. Hey, if you haven't bought that one, by the way, George, you should check that one out, Guardians of Legend.
Okay.
But really, you know, we just and we'll just talk about that for like, you know, a couple of weeks, and then we'll move on to something else. You know, but we have that in common, that like that's my. I don't have a group of friends that I hang out with here in New Jersey. I have a group of friends that I hang out with on Messenger. You know, I have Ashley and Nick and Lisa and Adam and you and everybody else, because that's what I like and that's what I enjoy doing.
You know, there's 1,000 Facebook groups about the secret, right? There's 1,000 of them. People are spread out all over the place. But there was something I was thinking about the other day. Something that I miss about the early days of the secret, I guess, like before Expedition Unknown, was that core group, right? It was the people from Quest for Treasure who didn't necessarily agree, but they were all ethical people. They all worked together and they all became friends. I was considering making a new Facebook group to add to the thousands and only allowing in ethical people who don't give a shit about the prize, people who would be friends, and building the thing that Ashley said was bad, a massive team of treasure hunters that don't really give a shit if they solve the secret. You know, they don't really care. They just want to hang out and work together and have, like, ultimately have fun.
Well,
And I don't think it's bad necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad. I just think that, like, you know.
Well, it's bad in context of the money. When money's
Right.
involved, it's bad. But
Right.
just mega
It's
teams
things.
or whatever. Yeah. I think I might do that. I think I might make just a private group and invite people like you, Robert, and Ashley, and Nick, and people who are just decent people, you know, who don't really care about solving. That way, you take egos out of everything that way.
Yeah.
And you just create a group of friends. Oh, well.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. Like, and I think, like, the people, like, there's people that come into it and they kind of, like, leave because they don't really, like, but there's a core group, right, that always stay around, right?
We will always be here.
A core group, especially, like, the people who have been in it from the beginning, like Matt, you know, and then Brett and all these people that have been, like, kind of just laser focused on this from the beginning, right? And we all can learn from them, right? We can all learn. Where we mess up is when we decide that we can't kind of like incorporate new people's ideas, and when we can't also incorporate the old ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be a balance.
Yeah. I mean, like I think the thing about old hunters is there's the group of old hunters that are not receptive to new ideas, and they're just
Absolutely.
as bad. They're just as bad as new people who come in and they're like, I solved everything in 15 minutes. Like if I can present you a fact and can't change your mind, you're a horrible treasure hunter. I don't want you around.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
My last comment or thought for the evening is I think it's pretty amazing that all you guys from all over the country and possibly all over the world have such a tight bond, and y'all call it a community, whatever.
You can't say y'all because you're included.
Something like, I'm
all of
like
us.
a semi outsider.
You have to say we.
We. But I enjoy hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, the person who is literally telling the stranger on the balcony as like we're playing like Oregon Trail, like the board game in the bar. He's out on the balcony telling them about the secret in the book, and he was right. Like
yeah, totally. Because you get some pretty odd looks from people when you start explaining.
But you do it so well.
But it's a great conversation starter.
It is. It's awesome. Like I mean, times when Ashley and I have gone to New Orleans to dig, probe, whatever you want to call it. I've pulled randoms off the street and been like, hey, if I read this to you, like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Like, and sometimes it might take a outsider's perspective, somebody that doesn't have a reason to look at things or have read 50,000 messages and 50,000 solves to say, well, this is the first thing I think of when I read that, So I've definitely pulled random drunk girls and guys off the street in New Orleans and asked them their thoughts on it. But,
yeah, he's even like made me like a probe that looks like a cane. Like he went and got a cane like from like the convenience store and like put the stopper on the end of the sharp end, and like he even like sawed off like the part of the metal like on the handle to make it actually look like a cane, and gone like really over and beyond as far as like trying to conceal or...
Now I feel a whole lot safer walking around New Orleans with our probe cane.
Big steel rod.
Right.
But I mean, and that's another good point. Like, what else would you guys be doing? Sitting around watching TV? It's something for you. It gets you together. It gets you thinking about each other. It gets you interacting with each other. Like, I don't know. I love it. That's why I love it.
Say the same thing. I say the same thing all the time. Like, I'll buy a new puzzle book or something off of Amazon or wherever. I'll be like, my wife's like, well, what did you pay for that for? Like, I don't smoke. I drink, but I don't gamble. This is my vice. This is what I do. I treasure hunt. I mean, $50 for a box of cards. That's what I do. I don't blow it on Smack or Whores or whatever. I buy a treasure hunt book. And I try to solve it. That's what I do.
You do it with your kid too. Like a long time ago, one of my friends, his name's Mark, and he used to do Reddit puzzles. We talk about them on your podcast. It's coming out tomorrow. He did one that ended up in Nag's Head, and me and my family, like, we solved it because I knew how Mark's brain worked. But it was a section of a treasure hunt, so it wasn't the ending. So anyway, I solved it, and I took my son to Roanoke, to Nag's Head. And I was like, let's go hunt for treasure. I kind of fed him the answers a little bit, but made it to where he looked like he figured it out himself. I handed him a shovel, and he dug up, it was a Raspberry Pi. So it was another clue, basically. But like the look on his face when he found treasure, like to mark where you had to dig, Mark had taken these river rocks and painted them blue on one side and then put the blue side on the ground. So Jason, my son, knew he had to look for blue rocks. And the moment he turned over one of those rocks and saw blue paint, like the look on his eyes was, you can't buy that kind of look. It's something he'll remember forever.
I mean, exactly right. Like, I tell the story, and I think I've told Ashley before, and I've told Nick 1,000 times, going back to Lost Skull. Like, I took my son out to Ohio that first time, like December 2019. And we went to this place where one of the clues was. And me and Nick had looked through every single YouTube video, everything we could to try and find this location. Because apparently there was this number written in this location. And we looked through every single YouTube video. But we kind of broken it to know what the number was without needing to go to this location. Well, me and my son went there, and we were down this path, and I've got a video of it, and he's walking down, and I'm about to walk down this one direction. He goes, no, the clue says you have to go down the wrong path. And he goes, I think you have to go down here. So we walk down to this one path, and at the very bottom, we walk down, and carved into the rock at the bottom of this walkway is this number. And he finds it. Like, I've got a video of it. He finds this number. Like, he solved this clue. Like, we didn't need it. It was that we'd sort of broken it where we didn't need it. But he found this thing. I've still got that video, and that's the proudest moment of his life right now. He's 10 years old. He's like, I solved that clue. He keeps telling me, Daddy, do you remember when I solved that clue for you? Like, that to me is worth more than the $500 treasure.
Yeah. Like, I had to leave. I had to run to my son's room real quick. Like, he's still got this. This is on his bookshelf. It's just a blue painted rock, but it's his treasure. Right. And when I picked it up, he was like, why are you taking my rock? But yeah, like, that's what it's about, man. It's not, who cares if you find a cask? Who cares if you get $10,000? Like, money, who cares? I don't know. Troy asked, what's the record for the longest secret podcast? We did one for 12 hours. Do you guys want to get out of here? We're about 32 minutes over.
Yeah.
Okay. Robert, thank you for coming on. Plug the podcast. Where can we find Live from the Code Bar?
Yeah, I mean, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on all the major podcasts. It's Live from the Code Bar. The new show will be tomorrow, which is with you, George, which is about Reddit puzzles, specifically A858. Again, we lost it, and I lost it, and then I found it. So it'll be coming out tomorrow. You can follow on all the socials. I have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. I do want to plug Areas Gray as well, which is my friend Adam's group. I do write for him as well. He does a lot as well. He's helping me with the web page and everything like that. So yeah, just definitely check us out. We'd love to have you listen. Yeah, Areas Gray's got a forum too, right? You guys? Yep. So, forum. Yep. He has a Discord and everything like that as well. Yep. Cool. All right. Yep. Well, thanks everybody for Sunday Fun Day. I'm going to close the stream. Robert, hang out for a second if you don't mind. Yep. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
All right. The stream is ended. So, Robert.